Or are you finding a new spot to sit?
Per usual, I'm just running around my house looking for my glasses and where I put them down last. So we can start.
All right, we will start. Thank you. And then, Kirsten, I just wanted to ask, I know we're going to add a new agenda item, the extended leave of absence of Kelly Hansen, but it looked like Lisa had put it at the end. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to move that up to the beginning.
Yes, please.
Sounds good.
So, and if it's okay, I'm just going to kind of start with this because I had asked to put it back on the agenda, of course. So, Kelly contacted several of us that there had been some misinformation and she was really uncomfortable with our conversation at the last personnel committee meeting. And of course, we never want that to happen. And so I had chatted with her. I had talked to Kirsten a little bit about the situation. And so I just want to give her the opportunity to kind of come on again and for us to talk about this and make sure, we have facts straight and all the information is right so that, I know we can't always have a complete win-win situation, but I never want to have people feel like we're not doing a fair thing. So, so I'm not sure how this necessarily will work. Kelly, do you want to just, we're going to have to keep this short, of course, but Kelly, why don't you just maybe start and then, Kirsten, I'll maybe have you make some comments and then the board members, if we can just kind of see if we have any different thoughts on this at this point. So you feel comfortable with that, Kelly? Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, though.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me back on. I will try to make this short and sweet. When I rewatched the meeting from the last meeting, the 28th meeting, I noticed several things that I didn't feel comfortable with. I'm not saying that they were lies. I just think that we just didn't know. And in hindsight, when we always look back, it would have been great that I would have been at that meeting to clarify. But kind of some of the big ones were, me being on the district insurance and how much that would cost our district. And I am not on the insurance and will not collect any money from the district now, or if the leave is approved during the leave, I will not get back on the insurance at any time. So that was one thing. Another biggie was, I think it was stated that I was offered an online job. And I just wanted to clarify that I was never offered an online job. I tried my very best to communicate with my administration ahead of time. And I'm not at all pointing fingers. This is a crazy, crazy time for everyone in which I want to give people grace that I worked with. And so like I said, I was never offered an online job. And so I kind of felt sort of pushed in a sense to apply for this other job, which I did and which I got. But one of the things I also thought about is, we can talk all we want about all the different scenarios, and I've pretty much been an open book, even though I'm a private person, in general. But I guess I just wanted to know, like, what is it that it was, why was it denied? And can we make a compromise with that denial to work it out so that the Red Wing School District wins and I'm able to have a Class C exit from the Red Wing School District? So I think, there were a couple other minor things that were said at the meeting, but I won't go into every little detail. But those kind of were two big ones. I guess the last one I'll mention is just, I know Pam, and she spoke so eloquently about wanting the best teachers and wanting to be fair and so forth. And I just wanted Kirby and Karsten to let her know that no one else has asked for this. And so I don't think we would be setting precedent if we can write it in the correct way. So I hope that if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Thanks, Kelly. And again, I appreciate you making some clarifications and bringing more information in. So, Karsten, do you want to share more? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I kind of will. So.
Sure, no problem. And I hope this doesn't sound like a debate, back and forth. Really, I think the goal for Kelly, Kirby, myself, everyone in the district, is just to lay the information out there so that the personnel committee can consider, reviewing it, making a recommendation, and then going from there. So that's the goal. It's not a debate. As far as the district insurance, really, whether or not Kelly has insurance or not should be a non-issue, and there would not be a financial impact, for the district. In terms of the remote or online position, I'm not sure of the timeline. I know that, except to say that the position was, or the co-teaching position was offered in early August. And I'm not sure when Kelly took the job at Blue Sky, but then at some point around, that time in late August or even early September, my understanding anyway is that there was an offer to let Kelly work with students online. But I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, I think the difference in terminology largely has to do with where you would be located. So when I'm thinking of online, I'm thinking that you're communicating with students online. But our expectation for teachers currently is that they do report to the building unless there's some sort of accommodation request. So, I think there are a lot of online, remote, distance, there's a lot of terminology that makes it confusing. But my understanding is that, Mike at some point did offer, the ability for Kelly to work with students online. But the feeling at the time anyway is that would be at Twin Bluff, if I'm not mistaken, kind of the Title I group area where we have teachers and paras.
Can
as far as,
sorry,
please
I was
do.
just going to interject really quick. I perceive it just a little bit different than that. Mike did call. It was very late in the game after I had already interviewed, and mentioned that he could change me from a co-teacher to a title teacher, and that I could be located at Twin Bluff. But we never discussed whether it would be with students or remote. We never really got that far in the conversation. So
Okay.
thank you.
And I know a lot of things have changed for Mike. I know originally they were planning to have teachers and paras work with all students, online. But since that time, now they're kind of going back the other way, and that they feel like it's going to be much better if they can provide in-person instruction with kids. Now there is a Title I spot that would be available to work with homeschool kids, distance-only kids, St. John's, Red Cottage, that would still maintain that online framework. And again, then it would come down to where Kelly or whomever would be officed out of, if it would be out of Twin Bluff or out of their own home. And then as far as I'm concerned, I know that Kirby and Kelly had asked to present the issue to the personnel committee. And my recommendation at that time was to deny the extended leave of request because my overriding concern has always been, we do not want to set a past practice in terms of letting people go after that February 1st deadline. And this year in particular was unnerving because we were trying to decide between in-person instruction, hybrid learning, distance-only learning, and by far the biggest factor is how many teachers did we have who could work with our K-4 kids so that we could provide daily in-person instruction. So, if we said yes to one person, then all of a sudden 3 others want an extended leave of absence in September or October. I mean, it could cause problems for our students. Now, the way I did word the MOU after that first personnel committee meeting is that this decision, if it is granted, the union and the school district would agree that is not setting a past practice or precedent. And so, that's what, and that was by far the most important thing. I didn't want to say yes to one person and then all of a sudden have 3 or 5 or 10 other people this year or years now, asking for the same thing after February 1st. So at least that part's taken care of if the MOU was approved by the board. And then after the first personnel committee meeting, I know that I received some feedback from teachers directly and indirectly with some concerns, about granting the ELA. So that was also a factor as well.
Okay, and I know, again, I don't want to rush us too, but I know we got to have a timeline. So I hope, Kelly, you realize that and the rest of us. But I guess let's open it up to school board members now if we kind of want to discuss this. I guess I know one question I have is that, do we currently have any positions right now, Karsten, that are completely online that would be to Kelly's request?
We have multiple teachers who are working only with distance only kids in grades K through 4. I think there are probably about 8 or so, so they have their own room in the school, or most of them are working from a school district building, and they're providing that service to kids who are working distance only. There's at least one teacher in the district who does have a remote teaching assignment, and so he or she is not located in the building. That teacher is located out of the building, providing teaching to a group of students. There might be more. I can only think of one offhand.
Well, and I don't mind just saying, and I told this to Kelly, is that, of course, we always want to make sure people are comfortable and get what they want to. I think my biggest concern would there be any financial impact to the district, which it sounds like there would not be, in fact, possibly a little savings over a couple, some years. But, in the aspect of we need to have staff and we need to have enough teachers for our students is also a huge priority to me. But, I guess that's where I'm kind of like, Kelly, I know when we talked about, your plan B was getting that job with the charter school, of course. I don't mean to put words into your mouth, but is there or Kirby, I'll open this up to you. Is there like an option for a plan C where you stay with the district and we help you figure out, a job that you're comfortable with and it's a win-win situation for both of us? Or is that pretty much completely off the table and not an option at this point? I guess is kind of where I'm at.
Kelly, I'm going to let you take the lead on this. There's been awful lot of conversation the last couple of days, so I don't know that I'm the person to step in at this point. You certainly know more of the ins and outs of your conversations that you've had with different people. So,
okay. I would entertain any plan. My first choice would be to still take my leave. That is my first choice. I would entertain a plan B where the date is changed and the MOU language is changed so that it feels good to everyone on the board and our district. I would talk about a plan C that could involve me working with some online students. But I think, we'd have to that might get tricky with 2 different jobs. But I'm open, like I said, for any conversation. And also, I was at school working Title I today, and I feel like there is a lot of overlap as far as no matter when this position is filled or if it's filled when Mike and Karsten decide that. I'm happy to do any transitioning. I was working on some transitioning things today. I want to leave the Title I program in the best shape that it can be left. So I'm happy to, whatever that would look like, throw that out there as well. So I hope that helps.
Mike, Pam, can you share a little bit where you're at, I guess?
Go ahead, Pam.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Looking at the material that was sent, 2018 Minnesota statutes on leave to teach in a charter school, it says that the district must grant a leave not to exceed a total of 5 years. So the only issue we have would be the timing of the request for the leave. Would that be right, Karsten?
Well, there are two issues. One is that the statute says to teach in a charter school. I know that Kelly will be a student advisor, so I don't know if that's part of their teaching contract or not. That's one issue. But then the same statute does say that the district can impose a February 1st deadline for granting those. And so from my perspective, it's the deadline for requesting those extended leaves of absence. Now, again, we've covered that in the MOU. So, I'm confident that, if this MOU was approved, that it's not going to lead to numerous others because we did address that in the MOU.
I wasn't aware that it was a requirement that we must allow the leave. So the circumstances of COVID-19 affecting the timing of the request seems to be a mitigating circumstance that we should be able to deal with effectively. I'm not sure how the tail end of her leave would pick up in order for her to retire with the district, but I believe we've done that before in the past for other teachers when we've tried to get bring in new teachers and retire older, more expensive teachers. But so I don't really see a huge issue with this at this point. I was not aware of the requirement that we had to grant the leave. So and
we must grant the leave if one of our teachers will be teaching in a charter school.
And we don't know if he's not necessarily a teacher.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about that as I and then the statute does does indicate that the school can expect the February 1st deadline.
Right.
So those would be the two provisions.
I'll just jump in that I am on the teacher contract there. It is a teacher position. It's not a secretarial position or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I know that that was kind of unclear to me, but really the deadline was the biggest concern for me. And of course, when we're making these recommendations, it was late summer when we're trying to make decisions about whether or not we'd have daily instruction for K through 4. So we literally need every single qualified teacher possible. Now, I'm going to argue against my recommendation, and again, in the spirit of just sharing the information. I mean, there are, depending on the person we hire, there could be some cost savings. It would depend on if the person takes insurance, what lane the person's at, what step they come in on, all those kinds of things. Typically, though, when we hire someone, there is a savings. And then, obviously, we want, if we do hire someone, there could be some flexibility in terms of stepping in for an absent staff member. If we really need someone to be a substitute teacher in the classroom. So, there are some other benefits, if you can say, although, the hardest part is losing someone with, someone like Kelly who has 30 years of experience. That's the real loss to the district. But we can't say yes or no just because someone's a good employee or a good person, and so those are the other two quote unquote benefits.
So I'm looking at the timeline, and Kelly, thank you so much for working on this. It really helps me to see it in writing and kind of know what happened when. So you put your request in on September 1st. So I as I told you yesterday, I mean, I want to be fair and working with you, and I feel very torn in this situation because I want to be sympathetic and supportive of you and your needs, and how your work environment is important to you, and staying healthy and moving forward. But also, I need to think about the fair piece to the other 200 and some teachers that we have on staff here in Red Wing as well. So I have to constantly weigh those two things. So if we had opened it up on September 1st, before the school year started, to say to all of our teachers, hey, you can still, even though we all missed the deadline on February 1st, if you have an extenuating circumstance that prevents you from teaching in person, would we have a bunch of teachers saying, yep, sign me up on September 1st, saying, you know what? School starts in 7 days. I'm concerned about my health too, and I'm going to put a leave of absence in as well. So that's the fairness piece that I'm really struggling with. And I tried to ask that to you, Kirby, like how many other people are you aware of that would have probably jumped at that opportunity? Since we've met, I have heard from other teachers about that fairness piece. And so I feel really torn about making a decision here. And I also have to think about you, Superintendent Anderson, your initial piece about denying the leave in early September, that I have to think about that as well. So I guess that's where I'm at. I'm really struggling here, trying to bring this forward to the whole board to approve this when I feel like there might, the fairness piece is really what's weighing heavily on my mind right now. I want to be fair to you, Kelly, but I'm also thinking about your colleagues too, because I do think that there are a number of people who would have jumped at the chance to have an extended leave of absence going into a pandemic. I'll leave it at that.
Kirby, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I do, because we continue to use the term leave of absence over and over again, which is kind of correct, but I guess I'm at a little bit of a loss because I am not familiar with a group of teachers who seriously were giving an unpaid leave of absence any type of conversation before school started. I didn't have anybody say, you know what, if I could, in a sense, stop working right now and stop receiving all pay and benefits. I did not get any of those requests. I'm going to mildly disagree with that, I suppose, because I think in some cases people are perceiving one person's situation in a different way, but this is not a paid leave. This is not a special type of leave. I mean, any teacher at any time can put in for an unpaid leave of absence. So going back to Karsten's point, the only thing that Kelly has asked the Personnel Committee to consider and take into account is the February 1st deadline under the situation of pandemic we are in. So Pam, I would love to know who was contacting you wanting to stop their pay and benefits right before the school year. I'd be very curious to know who those people were. Not on this meeting, but I hope you understand my misunderstanding, I guess. I didn't think people wanted to take a non-paid leave like you said they are.
Yep. And then again, in the spirit of Mike, is there anything you want to add?
You're not going to lead me somewhere?
Well, I don't mean to I'm going to just start the kind of conversation is that I know for me at this point, I'm not feeling like as a committee, we're full-hearted feeling like we should move this onto the full board. I'm going to be really honest, and Pam or Mike, you could disagree with me, but I also don't, you know, again, in Pam's spirit of, I wish there was other options here, whatever that plan C is, and maybe this just needs some more time. And I know that might be an issue, but in the spirit of we are in COVID and that all these deadlines have been pushed back, I just know for me, I don't feel comfortable pushing this to the next board and saying that the personnel committee has supported it, because I'm not seeing a lot of support at this point, unfortunately, or, you know, fortunately, Kelly. And I wanted to try to make this a win-win for everybody. And I still feel like there's room here for in the future, you guys working something out that Carson can support and that, you know, maybe feels better and looks better to us on paper. But I know for many of us, for Pam, Mike, and I, really the first time we heard about this was a month ago. And then, you know, and then of course we had the other MOU discussion, but, you know, we've spent a lot of time on this now. And again, Pam and Mike, if you want to interrupt me, but I just feel like at this point, the committee is not going to be able to push this forward with support to the full board. And Kelly, I'll let you go ahead and respond.
I have a couple of things. I know that this came to the board on September 1st, but I provided you with a timeline today that did show that I had talked to Karsten mid-August. I had talked to Mike way before that. So I realized that my actual letter was dated the 1st, but this has been going on for a very long time before that. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. It was not a September 1st, like, oh, I'm not going to go to school. And by the way, I did go to school and work really hard for doing a lot of things, either at school at the beginning or remotely attending meetings, going to volunteer positions, interviewing in the summer. So I just want to point that out too. This isn't, I feel like some compassion needs to be looked at here during this, because it really comes down to a date, and the date is February 1st, and that was 10 days after the pandemic. So all of this other stuff we're talking about is important and it adds to the picture, but I just feel very strongly that in that 10 days, I couldn't have made that decision. So whether it came September, October, November, March, whatever, that's kind of what I'm asking for in asking this board to consider. And then I'm not sure. I mean, I would like to hear, I feel like, well, I'll stop there.
Kirby, the unpaid leave of absence can be requested at any time. The leave of absence to work in a charter school is February 1st for our district. That's us, that's not state statute.
I don't think so. I would imagine, well, what you read was state statute, and Kirsten can correct me, but I think districts have the ability to have their own policy. I mean, we have the same policy within our district as
Right.
is outlined in the state statute. I would assume, Carson, that most districts mirror what the statute says, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I know that over the last few rounds of negotiations, we've kind of changed some of those dates to give us, you know, more time to do planning. So I'm not sure what it was like 6 or 8 years ago, but right now in the teacher agreement, we have a February 1st deadline.
Right.
Yeah,
we were working on that.
I can remember, I can remember Mike having that date starting with March. But we realized real quickly that all of a sudden, everybody else was doing their hiring and so forth in February. And by March, we kind of we're kind of standing there empty handed. So.
Carson, do you have a copy of the MOU that you can read to us?
Let me see here.
Does anybody?
He did send it just about 3 o'clock, Mike, if you have access to open up for email too.
I have it right up here on my screen. What are you wanting read, Mike?
It's not that long, is it? whole
It's 2
thing?
pages.
Oh, really? That's too long then. Um,
I have one more comment while you're looking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but while you're looking at the statute, I was also thinking, Pam, and I totally respect, we had a great conversation yesterday. I totally respect everything you're saying. But I was also thinking that, okay, our next deadline in the contract coming up is October 1st, or was October 1st, I guess we're past October 1st. And I would like to ask Kirby and Karsten, or Karsten maybe, was there anyone that came forward by October 1st to also get this fair unpaid leave?
No, there were no extended leaves of absence requests submitted by October 1st. We did have some resignations or retirements that take effect at the end of first semester, but no ELAs.
So I really do, I do believe that speaks volumes.
Thank you for pointing that out. I agree with you. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. And guys, I am going to have to move us on. Kelly, at this point, I'm going to put it in your and Karsten and Kirby's hands. I just think our committee at this point can't put it to the full board, feeling confident that it would pass up there. So at this point, I think we're just going to have to say no. And I wish we could find some other ways for that win-win situation. But at this point, I just don't think this committee is ready to push this ahead. We've really been trying, to show committee support at the full board level. And at this point, I just speak for the committee that I don't see that right now. Mike, Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
I don't know if we want to take a vote or not, but I don't see a huge impact on what we're doing if we allow this under an exceptionally long-term employee to allow them to take a leave and then come back, get something that they've worked for 30 years. But I'm not a big fan of memorandums of understanding. I'd prefer to have things hashed out in negotiations, but this is a very different time. And it appears that Kelly has worked to try to keep us informed of what she was thinking while she was going through what we've all been going through. So I wouldn't have a problem making this leave of absence request under the memorandum of understanding work for the district and for Kelly. And Kirby has been very good, as I said in the last meeting. I think Kirby represents his people exceptionally well. He's very square with us, and we've been working hard to get a good working relationship with our teachers and the union. And it's not always that way everywhere. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that. This is a difficult time, and in difficult time, we have to make exceptions to a lot of things. I've been talking to a lot of people in the district about the difficulty of opening up the schools in this time. And it's been a challenge. It's been difficult. It's been rewarding. It's been surprisingly more positive than a lot of people were thinking. And I don't see why we can't continue to make it a positive rather than going out on a negative. But I would be willing to let this go on to the board and see what anybody else on the board might say. Everybody on the board has their own opinions, I'm sure. But I would be willing to listen to them, and I would be in favor of allowing this to go through. I think these times require special handling.
Well, Mike, I would tend to agree with you. What kind of tipped the scale for me this evening is the October 1st that you brought up, Kelly, and I appreciate that you said that because I hadn't really thought about that. Kirby, just to reiterate, I did have two teachers come to me who are watching this very carefully and saying, well, that, but you're right. Apples cannot compare to oranges. Kelly's situation is unique to Kelly and to nobody else. And so I think we also have to give a special look at individual circumstances. And like I've said all along, is that I think it's very important that we are a group that is willing to work with our educators to make things work for them and to make sense. So I kind of do mimic you, Mike, in terms of thinking about letting it go to the full board. And we can share what we've learned, what we've gleaned. We can talk about how we've struggled with this, and see what the full board would say. So I would support also, Mike, moving this forward to the full board. It doesn't mean that it's a yes. It just means that we'll have more voices in the mix to weigh in on this. But you're also right, Mike, in terms of talking about how this is a special circumstance. We've never worked through a pandemic before, and I do think that we need to allow a little bit of flexibility. So I'm willing to be a little bit more flexible here too. So thanks for saying that, Mike. And again, Kelly, thank you for bringing that October 1st deadline forward too, because you're right. Nobody else has come forward since all of this has happened to say, you know what, I need a leave. That's my biggest piece is fairness for all, but also thinking about what it is in your particular circumstance.
And the sooner it's resolved, the better.
Yeah, one question, if it does go to the board, is when? Would it be tonight, or would it be 2 weeks from tonight?
I would really like Kelly or Kirby or Karsten. I mean, that was the question I was getting ready to ask is, I would like to give it 2 weeks, but I don't know if it puts Kelly in a hard spot, because I just think I would hate to kind of, we never like too big of surprises. And again, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I do think it's nice for school board members to be able to kind of be aware of, and I don't mind, giving a brief, look into it tonight during board reports. But Kelly, can you maybe speak, or, again, Karsten, if this is really how time sensitive it is?
Maybe if Kelly could go first, because it's really her schedule that her expectations that might drive this.
I'm flexible on that. I'm super grateful that Mike and Pam had a change of heart, and I'm very much respecting what Janie has to say as well. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys to decide. Tonight would be fine. If you need more time, 2 weeks would be fine. It's up to you.
As if I were a board member, I would probably appreciate a 2-week notice instead of adding something to the agenda tonight. But maybe it's up to Mike, Pam, and Janie, because you'd get a feeling for what other board members would expect.
I'm willing to defer to Janie on the timing of it. If 2 weeks aren't that vital to Kelly. I mean, Kelly is working, right? So it's really us putting our toe in the water and seeing what other board members might think, if they're willing to take the 2 weeks to look at what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I'm feeling is that we need to give our fellow board members a little time, a little heads up on this, and at least have them be able to have the time to understand the full timeline and what's happened. And, I feel like we kind of, obviously it's been a short notice for us to take this all in. And so I just think a little bit more time would be okay if it sounds like it works for Kelly. So I think that would be my hope, is that we could wait for 2 weeks, but I'm going to go with that.
Okay, you're the boss.
Yeah, I think that makes me feel better, because then it doesn't appear like we're trying to spring something, or board members have to make a quick decision without all the time to ask questions and that kind of thing. It'll make for a long 2 weeks for Kelly, but my guess is that Kelly would be just fine with that, or would be satisfied with that.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
Kelly, again, I'm glad. Again, I hope for a win-win situation here, and I'm going to let you work with Karsten more and Kirby, and I think it'll be good as we discuss with other board members eventually kind of and come to a conclusion on this. So thank you, and I appreciate you coming today, and Kirby, you too, and I'm going to try to get us onto our other agenda items. So I don't mind if you guys stay or what, but I don't know what protocol is these days, so.
Yep. You guys can stay if you want, but we'll need you to put yourself on mute.
Yep. And then Karsten, I'm going to move us in the essence of time because I know you have another meeting after this. What would be of utmost importance? We have the health insurance recommendations, which I don't think we're even ready for yet, but special ed staffing, I see Sherry on. Do you want to go to that,
Yeah.
or you tell me?
Yeah, health insurance, we have an LMC meeting again this Wednesday, so we don't have a recommendation yet. So let's jump to the special education administrative discussion. And tonight, Sherry is just going to present her thinking. We are not looking yet for a recommendation from this committee. It's truly an introduction.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. You'll see attached a memorandum that I sent to Karsten in September. We had a very thorough report from the Futures Group last April, and following their recommendation, I drafted this memo. This is, of course, not the first time I've come to the Personnel Committee on this topic. I just think that outside objective Futures report really substantiated much of what we were talking about. And so in the memo, I'll just point out some key pieces because I know you want to keep going. The third bullet point, just that they really studied our organizational structure and district coordination of programs and services. If in that second paragraph from the bottom, from a qualitative perspective, Futures reported that current administrative structure is leanly staffed, equating to a ratio of 1 administrator for every 315 students with a disability, and compares to an expected range of 150 to 250. In looking at all of my other districts, all of them fall within that 150 to 250 range. So I think the lowest, I have to find that now. The lowest is 146 in Kenyon Wanamingo, and the next highest is 197 compared to 382, which is currently students per administration. And for the administration, in my work on that, I counted 1.4. Sonia as a 1.0 and 0.4 for Min, because I wanted to make sure you saw the complete picture, although it's not really evenly divided among the two of them, but the numbers are the numbers. I also wanted to let you know I'm using 2019 data because we don't have current, we have 1920 data.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but am I supposed to be seeing something that you're presenting now, or did you send us something? I'm sorry to.
Oh, there was an attachment on your agenda. Do you want me to share it?
Okay. If you can, or I'll open it up. I guess I didn't. I did see that there is an attachment, but.
Or can Lisa share it, Kirsten?
Yeah, Lisa, if you can hear us, please share that document for us.
I will do. One moment.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. I should have asked that, Janie. Thank you.
No, that's okay. And then I was. And so maybe just to go back a second, though, you said on your range perfect. Thank you. When we talked about the futures talk, so the range was recommended at 150 to 250, but Red Wing is at 382. Is that do I have that correct?
That's
okay,
correct.
Thanks. And then I'll let you continue.
Yes. And so you will see then on the next page, the Futures Group actually recommended a model for us to consider. So that proposed organizational model that we would like you to consider would be the special education director, Sonia, with an elementary coordinator and a secondary coordinator. And then you can see as the costing on the bottom, I worked with Jackie to do an estimate of the benefits on that. And then there is no cap anymore. That doesn't mean there isn't proration and all those other pieces, but we would be expected to see 50% of that come back in reimbursement. So in special ed, you're basically getting 2 for the price of 1 when you compare it to gen education positions. Jackie, did you want to add anything? Did I say that accurately?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. I always like to check in with Jackie. She doesn't have anything to add then I've done well. So again, I know we've come to you a number of times, I think the last 3 years running, and we just want the Personnel Committee to get their heads around this, to consider it again. We know that it's not a great time of year, but we also don't want to wait until March and then be behind in hiring. So our hope is that we'd be able to post sooner rather than later, so we can be at the front for someone that might be graduating mid-year or looking for a change going into the next year, whatever it happens. We really want quality people. So it might take us a while to hire these positions.
Yeah, I would think so. Ooh. Yeah, I would think so. I'm on.
Okay, Karsten, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Sherry, what's that last paragraph, the 50% of our staff reassigned?
Oh, yes, I did put, so at least for the funding this year, there is something unique that's happening. If you remember last spring, when we went into the government shutdown, or the governor's shutdown, we had to keep our special education staff and contracts whole. So we were able to continue to code them off to special education, get the special education reimbursement, et cetera. This fall, the governor's order is somewhat different in that if we reassign a paraprofessional to food service, we no longer can use special education funding to pay for them. Food service would need to pick up that salary. So when we do that, if our spending was up here, and I'm trying to see if this is my camera because I talk with my hands, up here, and we suddenly reduce all of our, 40 of our paras, 30 of our paras, whatever, to food service or childcare, we are not expending the same effort that we did before. And we're going to track that very carefully across my districts. And that also includes contracts. So if we went completely to distance learning, for instance, we can no longer code our bus contract off to special education. So there's a number of differences this year that are going to make the funding challenging if we do go to distance. I hope that we don't, but so I was putting that in there just to let you know about that.
If we do, they'll probably change it again anyway, if it gets that bad, right?
They could.
So
that ruling is coming out of the federal government, not the state government.
Yeah, then it's sure to change. So if our special ed paraprofessionals is what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They get reassigned to another job. They maintain their contract pay.
My understanding is they would maintain their rate of pay, but the function that they're working under would pick up the payments. We can no longer code them to special education. They can no longer fill out their calendars as if they're working in special education.
And then what does that do to our maintenance of effort?
Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Or Jackie, you want to dive in? Maybe you can explain this one.
I'll try this. I'm going to throw out some really fictitious numbers. So say last year we spent $100,000 on paraprofessionals for special ed.
Right.
Even when we reassigned them to food service and childcare, we still got to claim them as if they were working in special ed. So our maintenance of effort was the same. We spent the same dollar amount. So now if our paraprofessionals, because we're distance and they're no longer needed in special ed, so we might need some, but not all. Now we're only spending $75,000 on special ed, and the other $25,000 is going to food service. We've now reduced our maintenance of effort in special ed, where we spent $75,000 instead of $100,000.
And that we're supposed to maintain that effort, right? So do we get punished?
There are general education aid ramifications if you don't maintain effort and can't come up with a valid reason.
So yeah, okay.
Right. If we don't maintain our effort, first of all, they keep our effort at the same level. So you don't get to just reduce it in future years to that new amount, but then they subtract the same amount that we didn't reduce out of our gen ed revenue, which is not something we want to happen.
Right.
So
Great
just to,
funding
move,
mechanism.
just to move us on a little bit, Kirsten, how will this all be part of a package? Like, you know, because this is always, I know, Sherry, you've always brought it for many, many years. And it, you know, as we went over kind of our HR plan last year, it was prioritized on there. It just probably was a lower priority because of funding and such. So I guess, Kirsten, what's your plan for the year as far as how we relook at that?
Usually we present the HR plan in the spring, but I'm hoping to have a rough draft done before Christmas so that, you know, we can deliberate, you know, sooner rather than later. Obviously, we'll have a new board starting January, and so they'll want to be part of that discussion as well. But my goal is to try to get the HR plan, equipment plan, long-term facilities maintenance, all those plans done before Christmas, so that the new board can jump in and make some decisions really early in the spring. So I thought, well, we can at least start tackling some of these possibilities now in preparation for that HR plan.
Okay.
I think one thing, Sherry's been bringing this to us for quite a while. I think, you know, it's going to be an expenditure that we don't currently have on our books, but I think it has the possibility to be an expenditure that reduces other expenditures and increases the benefits to these students. We talk frequently about being short of administrative personnel, and having people helping to coordinate the special education needs of our students could benefit everybody, from the students to the teachers to the administrators, at a cost in which would we get does the 50% special ed funding continue indefinitely as long as these people are employed, Sherry?
Yes.
Under current law.
Under current law. Okay, got to make sure that it's a potential for a real benefit for our students and the district as a whole, to have our positions properly covered, to have our needs covered effectively. And as Sherry says, getting it done sooner rather than later gives us an opportunity to get better people into position, rather than waiting until later and hesitating and thinking, can we afford this? Can we not afford this? $110,000 adds up to plenty, but the fact that it gets a 50% cover, you know, getting two positions for the price of one, whatever deal expenditure you want to look at it, it's an opportunity to really make our district better for all our students. And since we're talking about equity, we might want to throw this under that umbrella too.
I'll just add two things before I finish, because I know you have a lot on your plate. This is certainly a position that we've seen a tremendous amount of turnover in. And so one of my main goals is to really create a sustainable system for this administrative position. The other piece I'll say is just looking at staff evaluations for this year. There's only one administrator in Red Wing that has more observations to do than Sonia does, and that's Chris Palmatier. So it's just, we're expecting a lot from this position. Sonia is certainly rising to the level and doing a fantastic job, but we want to continue to support her. So I know you're going to come with a whole HR plan. I am hoping that, maybe you consider this as you start and approve some of it earlier rather than wait for the whole thing. Because again, we want to be right out there at the front to make sure that we want to post as soon, if you go ahead with this, we want to post as soon as we can. So thank you.
Say, Sherry, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
If we are running short of special ed teachers because of caseload management limits, could a coordinator, case manage maybe 2 or 3 kids if we just really had to?
Yeah, we have done that in the past, yes.
Okay.
in other districts. I will also say 2 years ago when Nicole, or maybe it was 2.5, when Nicole Jack was in the position, we actually had a teacher go out on leave, and Nicole covered the classroom for I think a month and a half.
That's right.
That's what we do. Even right now, we're short subs. I subbed the other day. It's just, which is really scary. But it's just what we do.
Well, and I just want to interject just really quickly to remind everyone who may be watching who or listening who doesn't remember or know that we have hired an independent contractor called Futures to look at our whole connection and partnership with the Goodhue County Education District, and to take a really in-depth look at how we deliver special education in our district, and of course through Goodhue County Education District through the county. And it's their recommendation, not just Sherry's. Sherry's known for a long time we've needed this, but this is Future's recommendation, this independent contractor who's come in and looked at everything that's going on. And it's also their recommendation. So I think that, not that, we don't give you merit, Sherry. Of course, we know that you've been a marvelous advocate for what you need. But I think this is another layer that kind of proves to all of us that, what we absolutely have to move forward on this. But again, Carson, I'll implore you to make sure that we're balancing. We can't just add more positions. And of course, it makes complete sense that we do this. But something else has to give. We can't do everything we want to do. And so something else is going to have to balance out and be given in order to get this. So we've got some time to work on that. But thank you for bringing this forward and giving us some time to think about this as we get through the year. Thank you, Sherry.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And by the way, if I could jump in, we have another committee meeting starting in 3 minutes. I'm sorry that we have to cut it short, but really the other items can be discussed at our next personnel committee meeting. So, we won't lose anything by postponing those.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Sherry, very much for that information. And Carson, we'll just expect you to make some recommendations then as far as going forward. So
sounds good.
Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you later soon again.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
employee at our district had single coverage health insurance, what is the cost of that?
Total cost or cost to the employee?
Is there a cost to the employee on single coverage?
In some contract groups, yes.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I can't answer I don't know what group it is. I was just researching it. So.
Okay. Contract group.
How about the district?
I'll send that to you.
How about like the district office? Like what? Let's just use Connie for instance when she was there. If she's still
District
there.
office is completely covered, either plan you choose.
Okay, the dollar amount is,
Depends, the 3,000 plan, I believe, is $661. And the 5,000 plan, I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say 570.
if you could just email me sometime, that'd be wonderful. Don't
Yeah,
hurry.
I'll do that. Mhm.
Oh my God, look at that mug on the lower right here. It's Alan Gaylor. Oh, am I still on? Am I still mute? Am I muted yet? Oh, darn.
Good to see you, Jim.
It's
Brian.
4:47. So should we get started?
Sure.
Always good to be seen.
All right, I will call the meeting to order. I see Lisa got us started on recording. Holly will not be with us tonight. So I guess we're gonna follow agenda the way it's written. We got a call to order, meeting agenda.
We do have an additional item that we added just today. So it would be discussion of use of facilities by outside groups. And I did invite Don to the meeting to explain the issue.
Okay, do you suggest we follow the order that's written here?
Let's see, which one is, I'm looking.
High school land lease first, then youth outreach lease, then use of school facilities by non-school groups, and then other issues.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
All right, we will start with the RFP for Rutland High School land lease.
So I was in the process of setting up the RFP to consider leasing the land. But then when Pam Marlin and I were speaking last week, he brought up the concern that we don't have a written agreement with HBC to allow, the renter to use space that could be impacted by the tower. I know that Kevin received a quick email saying that HBC is fine with it, but wanted to hear from this group because I'm assuming you'll want some sort of written agreement authored by our attorney and agreed to by HBC, allowing that kind of use of the land. And then the other question is, do you want, in addition to that, would you want us to completely clarify who has the tower lease, what we have in return, all those kinds of things. So just looking for some guidance as far as what we should be doing before we issue the RFP.
Has been a problem since it was put in place, been used? Has it been a problem?
No, there hasn't been any problem at all. Of course, there hasn't been a solar garden or anything else near the tower. And so that would be the concern, is that if there was a catastrophic event and the tower, damaged whatever is in that leased area, then who's responsible for it? I think that's what the issue probably comes down to. It's a liability question.
All right.
So my question to you is, how formal should we be with that before we issue the RFP?
I think I looked through the stuff. In general, it looks good, but somewhere it should be acknowledged that there is a tower, communications tower, and I think it's somehow or other, in the end, it needs to be addressed between both parties that they are compatible, whatever we might get for, and I don't know how you go about it, other than maybe to say that it's subject to a tower lease in the area. And final agreement will be subject to approval by both parties or something. I don't know how to word it. That's my only concern, is that it's compatible and both ends are compatible or okay with it.
In other words, essentially give a notice to anyone who puts in a proposal that there is that particular issue that will have to be resolved.
Mm-hmm. And because we're not leasing it right now, I guess I don't see it as being a huge issue if somebody backs out on the deal, other than we want to get it going. But it has to be worked through, and I'm sure our land at least is a certain way on the tower that doesn't say very much and everything, but yet you have zoning issues and setbacks and concerns should the tower fall that meet government regs or whatever. And I don't know what they are exactly, but I thought the perimeter around the tower would be at least what the height of the tower is. It's subject to some type of issues, so somebody doesn't build a house there and have a tower fall on it.
Right. Jim and Arlen, would you be okay if we worked some language into the RFP and then present it 2 weeks from now? Of course, we'd need to adjust some of the dates as far as, when the proposals are due, but would that be acceptable instead of coming back through the committee one more time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I think that's fine. I don't think it's a committee decision other than to give input to guide drafting something to be able to be used. So I think once it gets there, it goes before the whole full board if we're ready to do something. And so you're coming back to the school board to get approval to do an RFP, or you're asking us to just doing an RFP?
Well, I'm assuming that we would go to the full school board to get approval. We have not always done that in the past, but there are pros and cons. Another option would be to just announce tonight that that's the intention, and then we could issue the RFP. I'm okay either way. I just want to follow your direction on that.
Say, Carson, would you like me to check with Jay Owen? I thought I had done it before, but I just can't remember. Jay Owen or Cohen to verify that the fall restrictions wouldn't, depending on, typically it's someplace that somebody would live in, what I understood, but I can verify that if you like.
Yeah, I think we should verify it.
Okay.
Arlen and Jim, would you like the full school board to kind of stamp the okay to issue the RFP? Or should I make the changes and run it by the 3 committee members and then go ahead and issue it as long as the board's aware of it?
No, I think I could. I just bring it before the board. That's fine. I'm sure it's not. To me, it's. I understand the issue. Really, what Arlen is saying is, if the tower is 300 feet high, who assumes responsibility if it collapses, and who assumes liability on what it hits? And,
right.
And so if we just, if it's whatever the distance is, and I can't believe somebody would build a house there, but somebody might build a structure of some sort there, or have this solar garden or something. Yeah. So just have the liability as to who insures it. Do we insure it, or does the HPC insure it?
Yeah, and I don't have all the answers to that. So that'd be one thing we'd have to sort through with any agreements that we sign.
Yeah. Liability nowadays is such a sticky thing. You gotta have it, and you gotta make sure it's if something does happen, which heaven forbid it does, but you gotta be.
You never know.
You never know. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
By the time you say it will never happen, guess what? It does happen.
Right.
So.
Other question on this. I don't know if we have a current lease on the communication tower? Is it was still waiting to get redone the last I had heard? And I know, in my opinion, it should be a higher amount of money, but the bottom line is I don't think we've authorized to have that tower lease renewed.
Kevin, can you give us a status update on that particular lease with HBC?
The last I spoke with Dan, he was working with their attorneys to work out all the language, because we had talked also about the last probably 6 months, 5 months ago, the board or this committee wanted to know how the fiber that they've given us, all those pieces fit together. So they're trying to work out all that together. I'll have to try to get back with Dan again. I'm not sure where it's at.
I can see some advantages to doing the RFP now without that lease, but because if we need to get minor concessions on Hiawatha Broadband to make the other work, maybe it'd help everything tied together in the whole process too.
I think you're muted, Karsten.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Arlen. I'm not sure where HBC is, in terms of being ready to sign any agreements as far as what they are providing for us, in the future. But it sure would be nice if we are looking for concessions to at least, return in kind. So if you guys are
for leasing the land and getting on it as fast as we can, but I just want to see it done right.
Correct.
Yeah. If you can get the wording out there and stuff, I'm ready to go on it. I just want everything to be compatible.
Sounds good. Kevin will work with HBC to see where they are with that, and then I'll add some language in the RFP for the land lease, and then I'll take it to the board on the 19th. And we should still have time to get those proposals in before the snow flies.
Yeah. The only thing I think I see on HBC, other than my own concerns on what we're getting compensated, and that seems to be viewed by myself, is that the HBC lease would acknowledge that we have the right to lease the surrounding land for other uses. And that's the concession the wording I'd like to see in a lease without any monetary. That's a different discussion, but I think it needs to be acknowledged in the lease that we would have the right to lease the surrounding area. If we aren't because of restrictions, then all of a sudden that means we got 12 acres of land we can't rent because we let a communication tower be on the property. So you got the direction you need there?
I think so. I appreciate it very much.
You good with it, Jim?
Yes, I'm fine.
Well, let's refer back you to take it to the next step, whatever that is.
Sounds good.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the youth outreach lease for the clinic.
Yep, and that one is something Mandy Arden and I have been working on. We have extended it to a 5-year lease, and but the terms other than that remain the same. The increases are based on the increases in the Gen Ed formula each year. So if there's no increase in the Gen Ed formula, there's no increase on the lease amount. This is for the clinic space at Youth Outreach. Are there any questions on the lease?
Just the lines on rents, those are the dollar amounts they're currently paying, and then it goes up percentage by the education formula.
Correct. Those would be the current year amounts based on the prior year contracts.
Where do these revenues go?
General fund.
Okay.
Well, it's an expense. So it's an expense for us out of the clinic fund.
Expense to what? What do you mean? For sure. So I understand. So to read,
So youth
go
outreach
through it again.
that building, we pay rent to have the clinic there.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All righty.
I just got a question. Why the change from a 3-year to a 5-year agreement? Is there something we feel that's advantageous to us, to them, or why did we feel there's a need to make it a longer term?
We just thought it was more stability. We've been in the clinic for 6 years already. We didn't see a need to look at it again in 3 years, especially since there are out clauses for both parties written into the contract. And we can go back to 3 years. They would be agreeable to that. Mandy and I just thought 5 years was a better term.
Okay, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's right or wrong on it. The only thing that comes to my mind is we are partnering with the city of Red Wing on the use of this clinic. If we would end up partnering with somebody else, would this space be large enough? Would we want to centralize it more in the community for other partners in this? And we got outs in here, so I guess I'm good with anything. That's the only thing I'm looking at is when you commit to 5 years, you are locking yourself in, depending on what your outs are on the one end, but on the other end, it does bring you stability for 5 years rather than 3. So I'll trust whatever the powers be feel is the best way to go on it.
Has there been any change on the out clauses at all?
No, they're the same as they've been.
I've had it before. I can't find it now. I don't remember.
Can you explain what the out clauses are?
So it's in number 3. The lease may be terminated by mutual agreement of the parties if the sale of the property to the leasee is desired or concluded. That's one of them. If leasee does not desire to lease the property at the end of the term. I keep going through there.
Yeah,
The term, which is 5 years, right?
Yep, end of the term would be right of 5 years. Looking to find the rest of them. Hang on, it's been a little while.
and
Also, the notice above the lessor leasee definitions, a written agreement, basically by mutual agreement, we can terminate the lease.
and 6 months was put on there because we go from July 1st to June 30th, and on our do those on the health insurance bids during that same period of time, or do we go calendar year on health bid?
Calendar year on health bids. This is bid separately than our health insurance, though.
Right, but what happened right now? Health Partners has a
Calendar year agreement
Right.
for the clinic.
and Health Partners uses the clinic or has
Correct.
staff it. What happens if we go to another provider?
For
By
our,
chance.
for our health insurance or for the
Right.
clinic and for a clinic
health-
provider?
For the health insurance, which is, would that,
Those two are mutually exclusive, so they don't need to be the same thing. So
okay,
if we had health partners run this clinic, we could have Blue Cross, Medica, preferred one for our insurance or health partners.
why would Health Partners do that if they weren't the insurance provider?
They're
I don't
just
know either.
they're
just saying that-
different contracts, yeah.
Well, it is, but health insurance is the reason one of the reasons you have the clinic is to try to reduce your healthcare costs by clinic visits. So what incentive would they have? How would it'd be advantageous for another carrier if they had that clinic, but I'm not sure. I'm just curious how Health Partners views it if they're not the carrier. So,
They're charging us for whatever goes into that clinic, whether it's going through our health insurance or not.
I understand that. And, but I'm just saying, if you instead of go to Mother Mayo instead of there for your physical, you know, there's obviously a cost to that at some point if you met your out of pocket and your deductible and all that. So but it's been working, so we'll just leave it alone.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, Jim, if I could add, I've thought and worried about that very issue because if we switch our health insurance coverage, then, you know, would Health Partners consider pulling out of the clinic? There are other providers, but it would be substantial change for us to work on.
Yeah, and I mean, Health Partners is we're trying to look at reducing, or not reducing, but controlling our costs is a better term. It's kind of like manage your own health care. That's what you do now, a lot of it, through SHA or HRAs. So I'm curious not to you group, but I'm just wondering what the incentive is for Health Partners to run a clinic that they're not the insurance provider for our district. Just kind of interesting question without a clear answer. Okay, go forward. I'm fine.
I'm just wondering, after hearing this discussion, do we have any reservations on how the health clinic is going to work if we would make a change on our insurance carrier? Are we having some concerns?
Well, clearly you would.
And if we are, maybe we should be looking at a shorter term lease then, in case we need to revamp everything.
It really doesn't matter because the clinic runs July 1 to, or is it calendar year?
The clinic's contract with Health Partners is on a calendar year.
And
We have been discussing this with the LMC and our insurance reps, and there have not been any concerns expressed by Health Partners about this, about if we'd switch. They keep reassuring us that there would be no interruptions with the clinic.
Okay.
Either way, if Health Partners was to sever their clinic agreement with us, we do have a responsibility in our employee contracts to provide some sort of clinic, whether it's run by Health Partners or another entity. So we still need a space for that.
Okay, and then go back to my other question. I maybe heard your answer not correctly. Our clinic is calendar year.
Correct.
But we're changing it to commence on July 3rd under rents number 5. The second question is, our health insurance, is that calendar year or fiscal year?
Also calendar year.
Okay. All righty.
Yep. The only reason I changed it to a July 1 date is when it was closest to when Mandy and I started negotiating. We can change the date.
Well, it's just that 6 months is, you know, I understand that, but we may not know until November that we're switching insurance carriers. So that's why, 6 months, sure. So, okay, well, go forward, I guess. It's been working. Let's hope Health Partners provides a good proposal for healthcare.
So we're given direction to go ahead with this then, Jim?
It's been working for 6 years. It's a wonderful asset. It's designed for several different ways, but it's designed to help control control the healthcare costs by each person, because you go to the doctor, deductible is whatever, you go to the clinic, there's certain things they can do and certain things they can't do, and it helps keep the employees' costs down, keep the district's costs down, and service them, and then the city of Red Wing. Now, the city of Red Wing, do they pay any rent towards us for this?
They share in the costs, including the rent and the property taxes and anything else for the clinic based on visits. So the percentage of visits by Red Wing school employees and retirees versus city of Red Wing staff.
It's not the number on their insurance rolls.
No, it's visits. We get a breakdown of visits per month.
Usage. Okay. And do they need to see this? They have to see this lease and approve it as well, I presume.
I would have to check our agreement with the city, but I believe the school district reserved this right.
Okay,
Yeah, I believe Jackie's correct.
all right.
Yeah, I think that's correct. The city of Red Wing has an out. If they don't like what they're doing, they can pull out of our partnership.
Yeah.
Eventually, I believe I'm correct on that.
Has the county ever approached us recently?
Recently, no.
Okay, that's fine. We got it. I'm sure there's enough to do with both employers. And
I know Brad Johnson had approached the county a few times several years ago. I can't remember why it just didn't work out, but I don't think there's been anything recently.
that's fine.
We would also love to have the ed district.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carson. I talked.
Yeah, I think you and I were saying the same thing. We would love to have the ed district participate. You know, with their building right across the street, it would be a good situation.
I guess the only concern I have is what happens if we bring in partners and all of a sudden we outgrow the place.
Well,
Yeah.
I think right now the appointments, sometimes you have to go out a little bit because of the usage, which is good. And
And just for your knowledge, Arlen, when we built the clinic, if you notice, the Missy's office is huge. We have it set up so that you can continue and add, I believe, 2 more patient spaces on there if we should ever have to. That's why her office is so huge.
So in your opinion, we could double usage in that clinic without needing more space?
Yes.
Or more? Okay, thank you. So our recommendation is to
proceed.
Proceed with a 5-year lease for between Youth Outreach and the school district to be approved by the school board at a future meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I'm just making notes here, see if I can give a good report once. All right. And we have, next, we're done with this. We'll go on the agenda further then. Use of school facilities by non-school groups.
Okay, thank
And
you.
who's taking that one?
Yeah, it's Dawn, Arlen. I just wanted to come to you today because we have individual groups, associations that are using our buildings, specifically our athletic facilities, our gyms, the arena, that sort of thing. Typically, we have basketball, soccer, hockey, and volleyball that use our indoor facilities when the weather gets cold. And we had heard rumor that Minnesota State High School League may change the spectator rules, but they're not. They're not allowing spectators at any of the high school games. So we have had a request for a tournament, and we know that there are some tournaments with hockey also that will be coming up. And what we wanted just to do was have a conversation about if we're going to allow spectators with our renters. So what we did was reached out to the Big 9 schools, and the majority of them are not renting facilities at all to any outside individuals because of trying to keep people's exposure down and cleaning, sanitation, that sort of thing, and just being able to monitor it. We also reached out to Wilmer and Hastings. Wilmer is just looking at it right now, but they're not allowing spectators either. So our issue is that we have guidelines that we set up with the Hockey Association, but we did indicate that they're subject to change. I guess what we would like to do is just bring this up today because we are looking at other groups and how they're handling outside renters. So we kind of leave it open for questions. If most of these groups, if they go distance learning, they will not be renting their facilities to anybody. So just wanted to open that up right now. Indoor facility use is spectators, if you do allow it, is 25% capacity of social distancing, keeping in mind a 6-foot radius all the way around a spectator. So you're really limited in how many spectators you can have. So again, just bringing it up and wanting to know how much the board wants to be involved with this, or you want us to work with the groups, set up guidelines like we did with hockey. I know it's going to be really controversial. There's not a lot of options. There's no options really for a lot of these groups. The Ed District currently is not renting their gym to outside individuals. They have allowed high school volleyball to go in, but at this point they are not renting out their facilities for this winter. I am going to try to have a conversation with Sherry. Paul Hartman would like to have basketball over there. So we're going to talk about school sports, but right now we are looking at what we want to approve as far as our renters. So we do have a November tournament request in right now for basketball association in November. And we are not currently opening the concession stands, so that's not even a discussion piece at this point. You can't social distance in there, and it's very difficult for people to be eating and drinking with their masks off, and you know what's involved with eating and the droplets and everything else. It's not a very safe environment to be in. And I think because I'm on the district COVID team, it's even more, I guess the liability is pretty wide reaching. And even though they do have $1 million worth of coverage, we all know that we're all going to be vulnerable. So I really want support of this group because the associations are going to be very frustrated if we don't allow spectators in. There are some groups that are looking at limiting spectators. Shonda, our health and safety person, is going to be here Thursday. She's looking at some things for homecoming activities, and I'm going to have her social distance the bleachers in both the gymnasium and the hockey arena. We basically up to this point have looked at floor space and how many players we can have in the spaces. But now I want her to be able to tell me what we can look at, keeping in mind that once people sit down, we have to sanitize those. So thoughts, questions?
First, I want to ask, did other people miss the first part of your presentation? I was having issues with freeze-ups. Or was it just me?
I got it. I heard it.
Okay, well, that was just my computer. I don't think I missed out on too much. I
think you missed out. The only thing you missed out is that you said you were in favor of everything. So
I don't know if I'm in favor of everything. I've had issues with us using indoor school facilities to outside groups. I'm very concerned about it. I also understand the logistics of some of it. It may not make sense to other people, but I wonder if we should be treating the ice arena as a separate issue from the rest of our school district buildings.
And why is that, Arlen?
What's that?
Why? Why would you think that differently?
Because I think our students, other than our athletes, are not in the ice arena, and it was other money from the community that helped build part of the ice arena. And I think it's essential for the ice arena to function by using it with the groups that have been using it in the past.
But I think we're on a really slippery slope if we pick out one individual group and say your rules are different. And if we remember correctly, the Native Americans gave over $1 million for that ice arena. So it was, it was many people in this community supported the building of that. And I think as a district to say ice, the hockey players stand alone. I just feel that that's very difficult. It should be regardless of the building. We're looking at safety and liability. We're looking at the safety of our students and our family and our community.
And I'm looking at that, but the ice arena, I'm not opposed to opening that up a little bit more. I am concerned about bringing the public into our schools, the actual school building where we have our students, and increasing more risks to it. That's where I'm having a hard time. I do feel we should continue the majority of what we've been doing with the ice arena going forward. I also understand your concerns about treating one thing is different than the other, but I think because of the separate structure, separate from our educational facility, that I can justify it in my mind.
We do have both boys and girls hockey that go over there and use that facility that are high school athletes. So again, those individuals that go to school here are also using that facility morning and evening. So again, I just would like to just point out, to be cautious with that. I feel that, again, singling out one group politically may not, but if we can justify it for a specific reason, but that's open for whatever the board wants to go with, or this committee.
I got a
One other
question.
thing you might want to keep in mind is, Alan could probably answer it better, but how much does PE use it? Alan, I know that in the wintertime they go over and skate for FIAD.
Yeah, typically in the winter months, they might use it 2 times. They'll use it for 2 weeks, and then I don't know if it's in between semesters or whatever, but then a couple weeks later, they'll use it for another 2 weeks. So I would say a total of 4 weeks they would use it.
What do you think, Alan, about your staff is got to be the ones that got to clean up, wipe it down,
Well,
fix, what is that? What's your thoughts?
so as of it sits right now, we let parents come in, get their kid ready for the ice, and then we ask them to leave.
10 and under, age 10 and under, 11 and over come in by themselves.
Yes. I've talked to other rinks in the area. I just did on Friday and today. And what they do is if one parent is there, they let that one parent watch if they want, with a mask and social distancing in place. If it's a game, and we haven't really got to the game part of it yet, but I think the games, we were going to allow 2 parents if they wanted to come. I believe that was right, Dawn, in our guidelines.
Yes, it did. It was subject to change. We need to have Sonda make sure that how they'll fit in there. We haven't looked at the bleachers. We basically looked at the sheet of ice so far. But
Right.
now, again, homecoming activities are coming up. We will have her come in on Thursday and then make sure that the number is correct as far as what we can social distance. So to be honest, Alan, it may not be 2. We may have to change that, but that will be up to her. Again, her directive and what we can look at. Again, 6 feet around an individual needs to be the space.
Correct. It's my understanding that we also, they're having a board meeting tonight with the hockey, and me and Dan talked about it. So he's at their meeting, kind of getting some ideas or telling them kind of our expectations and what we're thinking, because I know some of the parents were frustrated that they were getting asked to leave, especially that 10 and under. I know it happened over the weekend, and my son was working and came and told me about it. And basically, the employee was doing what he was told to do from the managers and myself and Dan. And unfortunately, I feel that it was the employee doing his job and getting ridiculed for doing that and ask him to leave was hard to listen to. So I think with Dan, we're talking to Dan tonight, one of the things I want to stress, if we do have, where we are limited on how many people we can be in the arena, we do have that option that we have Live Barn, that they can live stream practices, and I can open that up to I can close them to people so they can't see them. I can open them up. So that's another option that we could have if we go that way. I really wanted Dan to stress, we're willing to work with the hockey. We're not here to not have you go and watch the practices and stuff. This is more about the safety of everybody, and not having an outbreak because we're being, what's the word, kind of relaxing about this. And if we have an outbreak, ultimately, we'd have to shut down the arena. So I guess that's more or less what we're trying to share with them is, we're trying to, it's too real early in the season to be able to have an outbreak, and then we don't get to go, have any games or anything. So more cautious, I guess, than.
Okay, I guess I wasn't that clear. I was talking about all the buildings, not just the arena. I'm talking about the gymnasiums and thing like that. You heard the request, somebody wants to do a basketball tournament in November. What's your thoughts on your staff and that of utilizing our facilities, the outside group, not just the arena?
Okay.
All the buildings.
Okay. Yeah, with the tools that we've been given to clean and stuff, we would have some overtime costs with that. And I know we could cover it and get it done. And with the tools that we've been given to help us clean, I'm confident that we can make that happen. But on the backside of that, I just want you to know there would be quite a bit of overtime costs incurred with that. And I'm already seeing that on some levels with overtime as it is now. The two people that we have that the board okayed to approve to hire, we still haven't gotten them 2 people. I'm working currently on that. I have some applicants now, but applicants I didn't get applications right away when we put that request out. I see, I'm confident we could do it, Jim.
Okay. Is the fee enough that we're currently charging?
Yes, I think the fee is enough. We have let them know that there would be additional costs. I guess I just want to caution too that none of the other schools in the Big Nine are allowing spectators.
Sure.
And also some of our neighboring schools compared us to Wilmer. So what is the reason for that? So, and it's a safety reason. So again, I just caution us that we're having a hard time during the day keeping our students social distance. Who is going to monitor those renters to make sure that they're adhering to the rules? Now, we could hire someone with the O1 fund to, because that's where all the facility rental money goes. If we could find someone to supervise that, again, and if spectators sit on the bleachers, you would need to sanitize each bleacher that they're sitting on every time they get up and move if they would, use the restroom. So I just want everybody to see the whole picture of what we're looking at. And really, we're here to make sure the kids are safe and the families are also. And we're talking hopefully this year, and we can get back to a more normal season in the coming year. But I just really want to caution the safety issue.
I think what I understand you're concerned on. It's a hard sell to tell people that we're hosting volleyball matches and or basketball games open to X number of people and then not letting outside agencies in, outside organizations in. So it's a tough one to swallow and to consider, but that's the first thing to come out of people's mind. Well, you're letting high school volleyball, high school basketball, high school hockey.
No, Jim, I do believe that we should rent to them. I'm not saying no, I'm talking about spectators. Right. I'm talking about limiting the number of people that are in in our building separate from the players themselves. As a reminder, the State High School League did not approve any spectators for any sport that's in an inside facility. They've only allowed a maximum of 250 outside,
Right.
none on the inside, no spectators at all.
Well, it could be where if it's written out and they signed it, and if they violate it, it could jeopardize all future groups using it, and then those ones will be the ones that are wondering, well, why can't we use it? Because X number association didn't follow what we said. They said they were going to do. Here it is, and now we have to make drastic steps, which we hoped we never had to do. So I get it, and but I think at the point now, over 6.5 months into this unbelievable ordeal that I never thought in my lifetime I would see, that people aren't taking some precautions themselves by social distancing or wearing a mask. Everywhere you go, people have a mask, or they're just not going to wear a mask. And my telling them to wear a mask isn't going to change anyway. So, but I get it. We have to be concerned, and we have to be cautious, and we have to be discuss it. But I think down the road, to get back to normalcy, we have to start going towards normalcy. So.
I would just like to echo on that, having limited people or no people at games. I know Paul Hartman put up a camera here in the gym, and he's going to be able to use YouTube as a streaming service too. So it's a great opportunity until we see how these situations are changing, weekly or daily or whatever, to start out there, and we can always change or whatever. It's just something I wanted to let you guys know. I didn't know if you knew that we put that camera up.
Is it taping?
Yeah, it's live streaming. It's live streaming.
So is there a tape though, if you want to go back and look at it?
Yes.
You do have that capacity if you want to save it, yes.
So they can use it as practices too. They can review the games, and then they can always watch it later as a practice or whatever.
And we could view it to see if they're abiding by what they agreed to too.
Correct.
I'm wondering if we should kick this around over the next few days and then present it on October 19th.
I do. Yeah, Karsten, I think we'll be getting a lot more school districts are looking at it now. Everybody in community ed and rentals, high school sports come first. Community ed comes next, typically in most districts. And then your outside rentals come third. And that's with our facility use also. A lot of these groups, these other school districts were talking about it, or it's on their list to talk about right now. Again, they were all waiting for that spectator modification they were thinking was going to come from the Minnesota State High School League, and it didn't. They stayed firm to no spectators. So now we can move forward, and we definitely have some more data we can collect between now and, I just want to make sure that we look at this, and even though the associations know that this is all subject to change, the other thing I want to look at is, would we as a district, as the other districts, if we go distance learning, if the numbers dictate that we go full distance learning, would we end all rentals like we did last spring? So that's another consideration the board needs to look at. Or again, our advisory council has looked at that in the past, so we would be willing, we're going to be looking at, but not until November. So
I would think that would be one thing that we would strongly consider if we went to e-learning, that the building is really off limits to only designated people. I mean, that doesn't make sense to not tell kids they can't come, but then tell public they can. So.
Yeah, the only exception might be if we're going to distance only learning because we can't find enough subs for teachers, just because we have too many adults with colds and non-COVID, issues. But I guess that could be factored in. Maybe it's if the COVID county rates are forcing us to make the change to distance learning, then we keep everything off limits or something like that.
Can I throw something out there to the board as well? It's just kind of more on the concession things too, because kind of what Don was saying with the whole picture is no matter which way you decide to go, just kind of keep that concessions in the back of your mind. So even if you do, like hockey or have people in the gymnasium, that would be the next hurdle, if we don't make it available. So just kind of be thinking about to allow a certain amount of people. That next thing that's going to come is going to be, well, could we get a little X, Y, and Z? So just keep that in your mind too.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to state my position on this. The bottom line is I want to see us use our indoor school facilities for school use only. And then I think we need to take a look at groups like the Amateur Hockey Association, which are a key part of the arena operation, in my opinion. And I don't know quite how to handle that, just like Don asked, on a case-by-case basis, that we maybe can allow some other things there. But I want to keep the public out of our buildings as much as possible, so our primary purpose of educating our students in academics comes first and foremost. It's what I've been sticking to all along. If you read through our policies, it also states that activities, athletics are secondary to our primary education. I don't know exact wording, I have to pull it back up. That's where I'm coming from on this. And I want to keep our facilities. I believe we have issues that we got to be careful not to introduce anymore, and we have to, and I want to, let's use it for educating our children and whatever we determine as part of the education of our children. And that's where I'm at.
I'm okay with drafting something and looking at it to bring something forward. If the school is using the building for practices and games, it's a hard sell to tell the taxpayers they can't rent it if they follow our same guidelines you would for a game. But if the staff isn't comfortable cleaning or something's going on, I get it. But I think until the COVID numbers changes, then I think we should do our best to see if it will work. If it won't, I understand that too. But is it to say no? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'd find the custodians to do the cleaning. I'm confident of that. The only thing would be if let's say I or the school board makes a decision that we have to be distance only, during the school day. If it's because of COVID-19 numbers, I totally get it. Right. Then, but if it's because, we have 12 teachers who have the common cold, but they don't have COVID and we can't find enough subs, we might be forced into distance learning. And then that might be a different issue. Then maybe we could keep some of those facilities open, because it's not because of COVID, it's just because of other illnesses. But,
it's also if we go to distance learning, are the practices done then? Are the games over then too? I don't know what the high school league has said on that.
I talked to Paul today and he said if we go distance learning, no matter what the reason, that I think they would be over.
So that would solve some of that right there. So
yeah, but we should confirm that with Paul to make sure that he's considered that. So maybe what Don, Paul, and I can do with help from Alan and Brent is to kind of come up with kind of the background information and a couple of options to consider for October 19th, and then we can go from there.
So that's to the board meeting directly on the 19th.
It's up to you.
I'm good with that. Jim, what's your thoughts?
Coming right to the school board with it, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I don't want to waste any more time, and we have to get this advance, either decide it, whether I agree with it or not, get it decided and move forward. And
Yeah, I think if we have people that are waiting for a decision, just to delay it will be just not advantageous for anybody. So I'm good with that. Bring it to the board.
Sounds good. We'll come up with some options for the 19th.
Sounds good.
October 19th.
We have a lot on October 19th.
Yeah. Anything else, or can we adjourn the meeting early?
I think that's all we have, unless Brent or
4 minutes
Alan or Jack have something.
4 minutes early, Arlen.
Well, I've heard enough. I'm trying to change my ways.
I do have some quick updates on numbers. If you guys want to just know, I'll make it very quick.
You weren't quick enough, Arlen.
Okay, so beginning numbers. So the first week in September, on average, we had about 1,201 meals each day go out with the district. So the second week of school, we almost not quite doubled that, but it went up to 1,893 meals per day. So we started to see an increase. So what that means when you take a look at enrollment, but of course, again, that includes community on top of this. So you'd have to kind of break those two out. We're seeing about a 50% participation right now with students in the lunch program. And then the only other thing that operations should be aware of is, of course, Trump did sign over that second half of the school year. So USDA will be providing guidance. School lunches for the rest of the year, breakfast and lunch will be free. The thing that we need to pay very close attention to is going to be the number of free and reduced applications that are completed by the families for compensatory aid for next year. So, Karsten is aware, so is Jackie. Just kind of, where we're sitting with that. We are down about 31% in the number of applications. So of all applications, paper and online. So total applications as of today was 165, where when you look at last year, October 1st, we had 239. So again, we're down 31%, which is about 74 applications for the district. So just some families probably just aren't completing it because they know the program is free, so why bother? So we're figuring out strategies on trying to get those applications so the compensatory aid for next year doesn't get affected by current regulations. So.
Okay.
So we have about 60 families or so that haven't submitted them who had done it last year.
Yep.
How can we, is there a way we could have like Melinda or even yourself make phone calls to those 60 families or send a separate email and letter? I mean, we have to get those documents in.
Yeah.
So
one thing I wanted to try is, so about 2 weeks and we're hitting that deadline, all of the applications expire. Last year's benefits carry forward into the first 30 days. And so any of those families this current school year that haven't applied, those benefits are ending, MEA. So we're in the process right now of doing a mailing that's letting families know, hey, your temporarily eligibility is expiring. So we will be mailing that home. I know I kind of want to see what shakes out of that, and then we'll probably see where we need to fill that void, because there has to be more families, you would think, during this pandemic with what we're seeing with the unemployment rates, that if it wasn't a free program would be applying for the meal benefits.
Yeah, the numbers should be higher, obviously. Yeah. So, I mean, if we need to hire Melinda for extra hours, because I realize that only you and Melinda can have access to that free and reduced lunch information, but whatever we need, because we're talking $200,000-$300,000 that we could be out. So this is a big deal. So let's touch base later this week and we'll figure out a plan.
Okay.
In addition to what you're already doing.
right, thank you for the update. Anything else? It's time, it's 5:45.
Used up your whole hour, Arlen.
Yeah, let's not make it 5:46. We are.
We'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay, goodbye.
Everybody.
5th, 2020 school board, regular school board meeting. I'd like to welcome you all, and we will go ahead.
2020 school board, regular school board
okay. I don't know where that came from, but apparently you can hear me twice. So anyway, I will go ahead and get started with I'll call the meeting to order at 6:01, and we'll go ahead and start with roll call. Mr. Bryant?
Present.
Mr. Christensen?
I'm here.
Mr. Derricks?
I'm here.
Ms. Fair?
Present.
Ms. Jones?
Present.
Ms. Tower let me know that she is ill this evening and will not be present this evening, and then the chair is here. So we have 6 board members in attendance this evening. If you wouldn't mind rising, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. I have asked Mr. Derricks to share a vision statement this evening.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so our board meeting agenda has been posted on the board book and on our school district website. Does anybody have any changes to be made to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented. This is
Second.
Janie.
Motion made by Jamie, seconded by, was that you, Jim?
Yes.
Any other discussion? All right, let's take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. That's 6-0. Thank you. We'll just call attention to the educational plan. That's always a piece of our agenda packet. And the first item on for tonight is upcoming events and recognitions. Who would like to start? Janie.
Well, I have a really neat story actually for tonight. So I wanted to recognize Rosemary Harnley, who is a community member. I guess she is a substitute teacher in the district in the past, but she has been attending this year's cross-country meets, and she's just a 73-year-old lady, which I don't think she would mind me telling everybody, but just this really spunky lady that is cheering on our kids and really, Brecken, you know who I'm talking about, right? She just really is encouraged by having young people do physical activity and have something to do. And when I spoke to her today, even, she just talks about how, as a high school student herself, she didn't have the opportunity to participate in high school athletics, and how with Title IX and different things, like how she's so proud that, we're able to offer activities to girls and the boys and just have some competition for them. And she's still running races at 73 years old, and she's just a little spark plug. And I felt like I wanted to share that with you guys as kind of during these times of not many highlights these days. She definitely is somebody that's blessing people during the cross-country meet. So Rosemary Harnley, thanks so much, and blessings to you as you come out again this week and watch our kids run at the conference meet. So just wanted to share that. And Carson, if I can, I think that would be an awesome little video or kind of thing for our activities department to maybe highlight her story, because she definitely just had a great message. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Janie, for the suggestion. I'll make sure Paul is aware of it.
Yeah, and I have her contact information when he needs it. So.
And maybe even for Megan Suey in our communications department. That might be a really great story as well.
I need to back up just a little bit and also say thank you and welcome to our 3 student school board members this evening, Aylin Hansen and Brecken Hill and Hans Liedal. They're all here this evening. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've missed seeing you in person. And Brecken's name is in the queue. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a couple of recognitions and events that are coming up. One that is most notably about to happen, October 9th is the outdoor movie night put on by Student Council. So it'll be social distancing and masks required, but they want to get students together and they want people to hang out outside of school while we still can outside. And so we're having an outdoor movie night October 9th at 7 p.m. And so I know it's just a really great idea brought forward by Student Council, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then Key Club is starting back up. Tomorrow, Key Club has their first meeting at 8:30 a.m. So any parents or students that are watching, I'd recommend that you send your kids our way. And it's a great way to meet people, have friends, and just help out the community and just overall be really involved. Those are my 2 things. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but yeah, things are starting to get moving at the high school.
It's really great to hear. Thank you so much. Do either of the other students have anything they would like to add or share in there? Aylin, go ahead.
We have a play going on. It's called Every U.S. Election Ever. It'll be for viewing on TV. We don't exactly know what channel yet, though. At the end of this month, the 29th and 30th, I believe, although our show dates have been kind of being pushed around a little bit. And practices have been social distance, mask required, and still seeing with the activities department if we could even put on like a teacher showing or something like that. But that's going really, really well. And we had our first run through the other day. And so all the kids are really, really excited who are involved in the arts to be back in and performing again and being able to be a part of the whole theater family that we have at the high school.
That's great. Thank you so much. Anything else from the students?
No, I think they covered most of it.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Anderson.
Yeah, I'll just like to point out that Mr. Nemenich announced that homecoming will be October 26th through the 30th. More details will be forthcoming. Of course, it'll look a lot different than in previous years, but just wanted to give you a chance to save the date with more information coming.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing no other recognitions or.
Sorry, I had one more. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I was recently talking with Mrs. Mickelson, and we were just wanting to talk about how great the 7th graders at the high school has been going. The 7th graders have actually been really well at the high school, and it's been really great having them in their own pod. And so I'm sure parents, they've been worried like, oh, my middle schooler's at the high school, right? Like that has to be kind of scary. But I just want to say, as a high schooler, it's being handled very, very well. The 7th graders are all together in their own pod, and they all have their own times that they walk in the hallway, and it's just being handled really well at the high school. So I just wanted to say that's really great going at the high school, and that the board did a really good job like discussing that and figuring that out.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's really important for us as a board to hear that. It's difficult for all of us to get up there and hear and see firsthand how that's going. And so we really appreciate hearing from that as well, because that is a concern that we've had, I know. So thank you. All right. Any other recognitions or upcoming events? All right, seeing none, then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is public comment. I have not received any public comment. Superintendent Anderson, have you received any?
I have not.
Okay, so then we will move on to school board reports. Starting, I'm just going down the list here. Finance Committee, anything new to report tonight? Nothing?
Give me a second to bring it up, and
okay.
And I'll do a report in a minute.
Okay. While you're doing that, should we move on to operations and we'll come back to you, Mike?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Anything from operations that anyone would like to share?
Sure. If I can go here, operation meeting at the 8th. Items for discussion for the land lease by the communications tower. Couple questions came up on that, compatibility between the tower lease and potential land use around the tower. And that will be coming back probably directly to the board at a future meeting. We also talked about the clinic lease for a school-sponsored clinic. Being recommended at this time for a new 5-year lease between Youth Outreach as the landlord and our school district. That's been for many years and should be presented for approval at a future school board meeting also. And we also discussed non-school use of our facilities during COVID. Should we be allowing groups to rent space out of our school buildings at the time, and if so, what organizations, what criteria, and that was sent back for more work from the administration end, and that will be brought back to the school board at our directly to the school board at our October 29th or October 19th school board meeting. I'm sorry. Also heard a little bit about participation in our school lunch program, and there is a concern that we are lagging behind on the applications for free and reduced lunch. It's not needed at this time for the lunches because the federal government is reimbursing all school lunches, but we need to get that in place so when that program from the federal government ends, we are able to recoup with these with our families some of the costs as we go forward. And it potentially, I don't remember the exact number of what we're behind. I thought it was around 30% of the applicants that in prior years we are missing at this time, and it could affect our budget on food service several $100,000 or a few $100,000. So but it was a good meeting, and maybe Jim has some more to add. I'm not sure. I'll leave it to Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, just echo a little bit what Arlen said. People out there that aren't filling out that information, they may not think they need to do it. We do need it because it's $200,000-$300,000 that we would be out. That's a lot of coin. And on top of that, Brent told us that the federal government now has approved the lunch program through the end of the school year. So.
Heidi, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I do have something relevant to this discussion. I had an MSBA board meeting yesterday afternoon, and one of the legislative pieces going forward is holding school districts harmless for the compensatory counts. So we're talking about folks filling out that free and reduced lunch application, and we know people that's lagging this year because everybody's saying, well, why do I have to, lunch is free. But it's not only the nutritional money, those FRP or free and reduced lunch counts also affect compensatory revenue because it's a measure of what the revenue is coming into your district. It's a measurement of student needs. And so we're going to ask the legislature, because of the problem you guys just described, to hold us harmless this year on the compensatory money. And the compensatory money is used to help students catch up. So it could go to different services, different programs. So it not only affects the nutritional program, but those FRP applications also affect other funding streams within school districts. So if you weren't aware of that prior to tonight, you should be seeing more information about that coming forward. That's one of the top, I believe, resolutions that the Delegate Assembly will pass and will be part of the legislative platform going ahead for this next session in January. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
That's really good to know. Thanks for that information, Heidi. Anything else from operations? Oh,
And
Karsten.
if I could jump in and just further clarify. So the free and reduced lunch rates are lower. And as Heidi described it, it directly impacts compensatory education. Could be $200,000-$300,000 for next year, maybe even a little bit more. But just a reminder that the compensatory dollars, it comes out of the general fund. So having fewer free and reduced lunch applications actually impacts the general fund. So just want to let you know.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anything else from operations? All right, Mike, we'll circle back to you for finance.
All right, thanks. We met last week. Jackie presented a financial report. Our spending is a little bit ahead of where we were last year, and that is due to the COVID back to school preparations. Food service, in a similar fashion, we've spent a bit more than we have compared to previous years due to the running of the summer food program, for which we will get reimbursed. Community Service Fund has spent not nearly what they did in previous years, also due to COVID, so everything is based on that. Right now, it looks like the Community Service Fund may have a nearly $59,000 deficit to the fund balance. I think our budget expected a greater loss than that, so I guess that's a win. And then in enrollment, if you'll recall, we took out 130 students from our budget forecast last year in anticipation of a decrease in student enrollment this year. And good or bad, we're currently approximately 22 students ahead of the adopted budget projection. So we're only down 110-ish from what we were considering. We also looked at the change in student participation by grade, and we're looking for those reports to be shared with the administration, which I believe they are, but to make sure that the administrators of our buildings know about the flow in and out of students. We were looking at cash flow projections that could change with the COVID realities, and with the potential that the state might borrow from us. They might not fund us we usually get it 90% in the year and 10% later. If we only get 70% in the year and then 30% at a later point in time, we were looking at what that might do to our balance. But right now it looks like we can make it without any borrowing, but we'll be very tight at times, and everything will be very much in flux as we go through the year. And but the preliminary look that we have makes it look all right. We were also concerned about insurance renewal costs. Property and liability increased around 12%, and the workers' compensation decreased by 6%. We have a labor management meeting coming up, which deals with our insurance for staff, and we'll find out more about what those costs might be. I won't mention anything. I thought I heard something about it, but I'm not going to say because I'm not sure. And but otherwise, it's looking fairly decent for us, given all the unknowns that we've had. I think we took a very conservative approach to budgeting this year, and it was not out of line to do that. I mean, being 22 students off and counting the student population is is pretty good when we were fundamentally winging it at the time. So Jim or Heidi, if you have any additional input on that.
The only thing I think, Mike, I'll expand on is we talked about enrollment and doing a survey of why people are not coming here. And I didn't see that in the minutes, but we talked about that. And like you said, sharing and talking with the school building administrators, so they're aware of what it is, and maybe they have some ideas and why the enrollment is declining, and get them at least informed and get them on board with the information. So,
right, that was something that we've been looking at for a while, and we haven't come around to a full accounting and understanding of what it is that's causing all these things. And we're looking at maybe expending a little bit of money to get a professional survey done so that we can get the answers faster than trying to count on our staff doing it in the whatever time they can squeeze out of their day. Yeah, thanks, Jim. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next on my list is personnel.
Thank you, Pam. We did meet today, so I just wanted to make sure the rest of the board was aware of a couple of things. We talked with Sherry about some special ed staffing, and of course that need is there for that extra special ed admin that we've talked about with our futures. Look at our whole district. So I think, we know we're gonna have to look at that seriously, and we did ask Carson to figure out, how we're gonna make that financially, work out, whether that's shifting some other things, but we really did feel like obviously that's something that we have to do, and that it might show cost savings in other areas too. So no, that's on there. And then I mainly wanna make sure that everyone's aware, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have on the agenda a leave of absence request that we are going to bring to the full board. The administration has been working on an MOU for an employee, and we just definitely want a fair resolution for all. And the committee kind of went back and forth about how to deal with this or what to do with it. And we definitely just felt like we should finally bring it to the full board to see where everybody was at for it. So definitely a special request. Kind of that February 1st deadline was missed for the extended leave of absence that we have in the contract. But with COVID and some other things, definitely we want to make sure that we're being flexible and just being sensitive to the times that we are in. So just look for that in 2 weeks, and I'll direct you to Karsten for maybe some more specifics, because I'm not sure exactly how much information we'll put in that. Karsten, I don't know if that'll be on the consent agenda or what it will be, but I just want to make sure people are aware of it. And then just real quickly, maybe Pam, if it's okay, just negotiations is continuing and ongoing. We did start with the custodians, and we're continuing on with principals and directors. And then I do want to highlight that, Karsten's contract will be up too, so that's something we're going to have to address also. We did talk about at custodian chat about negotiations that we should have a full board discussion of just kind of what parameters and our strategy for the coming year, because obviously there's lots of considerations. So yeah, do you want me to, Pam, I do have an update on kind of district advisory and the LMC. Do you want me to wait, or should I just go ahead with that?
You can go ahead with that, but Superintendent Anderson, is it my understanding that at our next board meeting, we'll have a closed session to kind of discuss some of those parameters?
Yeah, I'll just respond to 2 points that Jenny brought up. First, the extended leave of absence would be included on the consent agenda like we normally would. And then second, yes, there will be a closed session to discuss custodial negotiations and kind of overall estimates as far as where we expect settlements to land.
Sounds good. Okay, go ahead, then you can finish.
I'll keep it really quick, but District Advisory Committee is continuing and going on. Jess Whitcomb and Mick Wendland are leading that. So we are meeting October 8th. And I just wanted to make sure, I know Heidi's aware of this, but they are merging 2 committees together, the old district advisory and then the flight pass committee, which seems like a really good idea. So that should be continuing to be a good, robust committee that we can bring lots of issues to. And then, so we are meeting on the 8th for that. And then I just wanted to bring up again on LMC, we're meeting this week again. We didn't come to a final decision last week because there was a lot of questions still about wellness and just kind of what each insurance group was going to offer us with that. So we definitely just took some more time, and we were able to work with our, I forget what they're called, Karsten, is Lynn, like kind of our advisory insurance group. I don't know what the right term. We're good with that, but
insurance consultant.
Perfect, insurance consultant. But they were really helpful in making sure our committee had the information we needed to make a good decision. And like Mike inferred to, we're going to see some pretty steep increases, and we can bring that up at the next committee meeting. But I'm sure everybody is aware that healthcare is not something that is being saved on these days. So that should be at the next school board meeting for consideration, though, I believe. So. Thank you. And that's all I have, Pam. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jeannie. Anything from Legislative or Policy Committee?
No, I think we updated you at the last board meeting but I do have quite a bit of information from the MSBA board meeting. We went through initial look at legislative resolutions. I have some information about the leadership conference and then some other dates that the board might be interested in. So I'll start with the legislative resolutions. There's a few less this year than we normally have. So I think we've whittled down to about 12 instead of usually 20 to 25. I already mentioned the one, hold harmless the compensatory counts so that school districts aren't harmed by all these great shifts due to a pandemic. Another one that will make sense to the board is stabilizing funding for student counts for this year. So that's, again, a hold harmless approach for pupil counts. And I won't get into the technicalities, but as Mike reported earlier, we've had we intended that we would, or estimated that we would lose 130 students. And again, if you lose enough students, you get some compensatory money if it all happened in one year. But we're just asking the state to just this year, because things have changed rapidly and wildly in unpredictable ways, to just hold us harmless right now. Let's just strap in and do what we can for those 2 student count pieces. Also kind of related to that is removing instructional hours requirement. And I think this will ultimately work in Red Wing's favor for a couple of specific reasons. We're starting to do under that Winger Flight Paths program a lot of service learning or internships, and we want to be sure that those count as student investment in their education. And so, and then there's we could go deep into this, but not now, but students learn at different rates. So is it okay if your student graduates in 5 years instead of 4 because they needed more time to get through something? And we recognize that between gen ed and special ed, there's different timelines for those folks. So anyway, that's I think something that needs to be discussed. And then I'll just briefly mention 2 others. One is what we already brought up about the state auditor's office being interested in doing school audits. And I think they've already received $700,000 from the legislature to try to get this idea up and running. MSBA is not in favor of that at this time. And again, this is the first blush, so we'll see how it shakes out. But we just want to maintain district authority for deciding our own audit firms. And then the last one I'll mention is under education programs, recognize that virtual contact will qualify for targeted service funding in a distance learning model. So again, it's something driven by our virtual environment. How can we look at the student contact and assess that in a different way, because the normal, usual way won't exactly work out for anybody. So those are just five of the legislative pieces that I feel will be pretty strongly at the top of their time and attention this year. You're hearing it first because it hasn't been here tonight, because it hasn't been formally announced by MSBA, but it looks like the leadership conference will be virtual. So instead of that week or half week in January, it looks like it's going to be held right now. The latest information is Thursday mornings on January 14th, 21st, and 28th. And those will be live. We will have recorded and online pieces available. Elections still need to take place for the district director. There will be a change in bylaws this year. We've really overhauled them quite thoroughly. We even took out the reference to the telegraph. So it's been a long time since they were updated. And then we also want to provide some social opportunities. We've really missed kind of getting together at regional meetings and chatting and just having that informal, hey, how are you guys doing? What's new in your district? What's the barrier? What's the good news? So anyway, just a heads up that's the direction that they've determined we need to move into. We will not have as many workshops, but we will still have a pretty good number. Usually we have around 80 between workshops and roundtables. It will not be 80, but it could be 50, 50 to 60 maybe. You'll have two keynote speakers, one on the first Thursday and one on the second Thursday, so it will mirror a little bit of what we've done before. So anyway, stay tuned for more details. Then some upcoming dates. Thursday, October 15th, they're doing a series of seminars on the third Thursdays. This time around, and I really urge you to take advantage of this opportunity, it's going to be Tom Melcher, who was the finance director for Minnesota Department of Education. A real whiz, a real guru. I mean, if you get a chance to listen to him, he can lay out a lot of stuff that makes sense with a very complicated public education funding in Minnesota. And I can't tell you what time that is. I tried to find it and I'm short on that, but look up MSBA and register for that. That's on Thursday, October 15th. Friday, October 16th, they're starting something new called Coffee and Conversation. So on the 16th, Friday morning from 8 to 9, that will be Southern Minnesota. So it'll probably be everything along the southern border of Minnesota or south of I-90. So if you're interested in that, that's available. I think that's it. One thing, and I've already put this in front of Karsten and Lisa Stegerda, is the new phase 1 and phase 2 trainings for the new people get elected this fall. I would really urge that those folks take advantage of those trainings in December. I believe Jim did that and then went on to the January conference. So it kind of broke things up if you need to juggle your work schedule or your family life. So those are out there too. And then I believe there'll be another Coffee and Conversation again in December, about mid-December. So stay tuned for that one. And that was a lot, but that's all I have right now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Any other board meetings or committees that anyone would like to highlight?
I'll just mention the SSC Southeast Service Co-op board meeting that went last month. The service co-op is working hard on, along with the other service cooperatives, at streamlining and broadening their pool of people in the insurance, broadening their insurance pool. So sharing all of the sharing the pool with the entire state, although we're working on smaller districts separate from larger districts. But the hope there is that when we get a larger pool available to us, that we will get more competitive rates and we'll be able to get more contracts, which is where a lot of the service co-ops get a lot of their revenue from. They started out doing that because smaller districts were unable to get insurance because they were too small, the pool wasn't big enough to assume the risk. So they're moving forward on that end. If that works, that should be a good benefit. It gives us a little bit of, it gives the service co-ops a little bit of leverage against PEEP, the Public Employees Plan, that has been making headway legislatively for years. And it's, some unions think it's the best thing, and at the service co-op, what we're seeing is, or what we think we're seeing is that they're doing a let's see, what do they call it? Bait and switch. That's unfair, but it looks like they might be offering lower rates initially, and then in order to keep those rates, well, they won't be able to keep those rates as insurance costs increase. That's what concerns us. And then everybody is already committed to PEEP, and then it's all a public employee thing, and it's all publicly funded with minimal input from the districts that need to pay for the plans. Also, they will be having a new election for board members for the Southeast Service Co-op. It's an extremely rewarding job. The staff and board of directors there are really, really excellent people, thoughtful, smart, and concerned about keeping public entities moving forward. They do training. They, like I said, they do insurance plans. It's a really interesting job, and my term is up at the end of this year. So they're looking for people to to offer themselves up to join. They meet once a month. You get, if they have it in person, which we haven't lately, they pay you for the ride down to Rochester and back. You get a stipend per meeting, and you get to talk with different people from different districts and smaller local governments. And it's just it's a really great opportunity to learn more about how government works in the state of Minnesota. And if someone on this board might be interested in doing that, or somebody who comes on the board shows any kind of interest, although they will assume it in January, if there's anybody who takes it. If nobody takes it, I might be able to serve another year. But I think it would really benefit this board to have somebody down there. It's a really tremendous opportunity, and that's about it. They hopefully they'll get the insurance thing going, because they have a great insurance guy down there who's going to be working for the state, for the entire service cooperative group, and it looks promising. So we're hope for the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Heidi?
Yeah, I should have included a brief update on Minnesota State High School League. I know we were notified and informed of the dues. That dues bill is to get Minnesota State High School League through this year, 2021. 75 to 90% of their revenue relied on state tournaments. And without state tournaments, you don't have that revenue, and they already cut 4 staff. So, and they realize there's a communication gap, and they've struggled with that for years. They're supposed to be emailing out to the reps, the local board reps, and the activities directors. So I think there will be some further communication about the situation coming from MSBA, partnered with the superintendent's group, MASA, to reach out to the superintendents around the state, because nobody was really pleased to see, the increased invoice from Minnesota State High School League. So again, I just wanted to add a little bit more information about that. It's been obviously an extremely challenging situation. The Minnesota State High School League board met on October 1st, as you're probably mostly aware. It made some more changes. They have not finalized the winter sports pieces yet. They hope to do live streaming of the championships. Well, they're not doing championships, they're doing regionals, sectionals, and that type of thing. So again, I would urge this board, if you're not satisfied with that communication, please get back to them and make sure that they know what our activities director communication piece is, our board rep communication piece. And I know, again, it's a difficult year for everybody, and Minnesota State High School League really felt like they were in a box with nowhere else to go, with, like I say, 75 to 90% of their revenue coming from state tournaments. And the biggest of those were football and hockey, and of course football's not happening in the way that it normally does, and I'm not sure what hockey looks like. So I just wanted you to know a little bit more.
Thank you. Any other board reports? I will add two things. One is for the public's information. On September 28th, this board met and talked about equity at our monthly workshop. And if you get an opportunity, it is online and you can look at that and view it. It was one of the best 2 hours I think this board has spent. We had a lot of really great discussion. We came up with a bit of an action plan, which is going to be taken back to administration. And then hopefully between the administration and the board, we can come up with some goals in equity planning. The other piece I wanted to share with you is I've been attending MSBA Phase 3, Building a High Performance School Board Team. And I will say that it is extremely well done. These virtual format conferences, I've been very impressed. We've had actually breakout sessions, and it's all really well timed, and it's been really fun to have small groups where we can actually have conversations. And it's like you said, Heidi, we've actually had some opportunity to say, hey, how's it going for your district? And I think right now, especially in a pandemic situation, it's been extremely valuable to connect with board members from across the state and talk about what are their frustrations, what are their joys, what can we learn from one another. So that's been extremely valuable. Heidi, I'll turn it back over to you.
I'm sorry, I keep looking down at my notes and going, oh yeah, one more thing. So on the equity piece, yesterday afternoon, part of our board meeting, board of directors for MSBA, was to listen. We had an actual presentation from Justice Alan Page and Neil Kashkari, the Federal Reserve Chair, who used to be an aerospace engineer too, who knew? But back to that equity piece, I think for a long time we've thought, well, that's not really us, or what is equity? And that's what's driving President Kashkari and Justice Page. They are dissatisfied with the progress or lack of progress in closing achievement gaps and in this state, and with good reason. So I don't know that I learned anything new yesterday, but it's clear these gentlemen have a lot of passion, and I understand where they're coming from. I think the discussion is this constitutional amendment going to do what they think it's going to do? So again, I would urge the board to pay attention to that, because it isn't just the Twin Cities thing. We have equity issues here, and mostly they're focused on racial disparities, but they also acknowledge the poverty gaps and stuff too. So anyway, just really grateful that I have the opportunity these past few years to serve public school districts across the state, and that MSBA has dived into getting us these resource speakers right from the source about current issues. And I would encourage Red Wing to keep thinking that we're not over here by ourselves. We're all part of that picture too. The other thing I wanted to add under the school board reports though was Community Ed Advisory Council met at the end of last month. And the Living Healthy Red Wing program is sunsetting. That was tucked under Community Ed, and they managed grants to keep that program going. But it seems to have reached kind of its natural end, along with some funding issues and duplicate work across the community, all good work. So that is sunsetting. The Park Naturalist program is still going, and they've come up with some creative ways to come work in the community and connect with kids. And then the fall brochure for Community Ed is out now. I believe there's no printed or limited print editions, but there's a virtual one. And I was really surprised at the variety. I was thinking, well, what do you do in a pandemic? But they are still offering a variety of classes, both in person and virtual. So I think if you want to take advantage of one of those, board directors do have the opportunity to take a class for free. It's part of helping you to get to know the Community Ed program and what we do for adult learning in this community, and obviously children opportunities for students too. Unfortunately, due to different circumstances, pandemic, there are programs that they were not able to go forward with, such as the differently abled adult programs and stuff at this time. But please urge people to look it over and find a link on the website, and there's still a lot of opportunities there. So thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that, Heidi. It's really important to know all of those pieces of information. And, Community Ed and Rec, they're such a great resource in our community. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the administrative reports. Superintendent Anderson.
Thank you, Pam. I'll just briefly highlight some of the issues that are included in the written reports. First, before the actual update for this meeting, just a reminder that there is a written plan showing our progress towards implementation of the education plan this year so far. And right now it's a 14-page summary of some of the things we're doing. It's just a good reminder that we are still planning to fulfill every promise in the operating levy referendum. And so please look through that document just to see how we're doing that during COVID. As far as this meeting is concerned, there are some notes from the Minnesota State College Southeast Advisory Council. One thing I'll point out is that they're applying for a grant related to maritime training and focus on the Mississippi River. What a great project for Southeast to take on because of our location, obviously. But they have a lot of very innovative, effective programming possibilities that they're exploring, largely thanks to Larry Lundblad and his administrative staff. There are also notes for the Child and Family Collaborative. They are planning to extend the contract to their director for another 2 years because the funding looks strong in that area. Jess Whitcomb did develop a list of district committees and then participants. And so you can see the list of the different committees listed there. There are parents, staff members, several students, school board members. It's a great list of people who represent the community well in those different endeavors. As far as the second page, Jim mentioned this earlier. We're planning to do a survey of families open enrolling out of the district. We have about 200 families in that situation, or at least 200 kids. And so I did get a survey from another school district. I still need to receive approval to use the same questions from the superintendent there. But we are planning to conduct that survey in November or December. What I'm doing now is trying to figure out, should we have internal people doing it, or should we hire an outside source to make calls in a shorter period of time? One exciting thing that we're doing for grades 5 through 12 is that beginning second quarter, Tony Kashi, a math teacher at the high school, will be working part-time as an instructional technology leadership coach. We're doing that by reallocating some staff assignments that George had in his building, as well as possibly using staff development funds. We're really excited about that because we know that our teachers need support as far as teaching in the hybrid and distance, and Tony Kashi is an expert at that. So he'll be starting that second quarter. In addition, we're planning to, or we are posting for 16 building tech contacts, $1,000 per person per year. And these folks will also be helping their colleagues with Google Classroom and other instructional equipment needs, during the school day. We are anticipating some funding from a local foundation. And if we don't secure that funding through, local partners, then we'll use our staff development revenue to pay for those building contact leads. And then finally, the other item I'll highlight is one of our board members in our individual meetings that we've been holding did ask about, why are only employees with school health insurance using the school-sponsored health clinic? And, when it was first created, there were a lot of concerns about who could use the clinic, the capacity of the clinic, and then, also members who might choose just to rely on the clinic and not take health insurance, and then what would happen if there was a major incident. And so we didn't encourage, or we didn't allow those without health insurance to participate. The Personnel Committee may want to review this possibility because I think we can address each one of those items. So I don't have a recommendation. I think it should go through personnel and would need some changes in some district contracts, but I think it's something we should at least consider. And that's all I have, unless there's some questions.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, thanks. I wasn't fast enough on the fingers. Karsten, this is in addition to the information you already gave us. I know people have been asking us about, well, do we do, what about testing this year in the pandemic? And my understanding is we still need to carry forward with student testing because the federal government has not given us a waiver. They gave us a waiver in the spring because people were distance learning, but now, we are still required to march through some testing. Is that correct?
Well, I can answer that in two ways. First of all, the local school district, Red Wing Schools conducts its own testing. Our primary testing source is FastBridge. So we are following through with that, and we're in the middle of our fall testing season. Hopefully we can also have a winter test and then a spring test. In my mind, that's the best way we can monitor progress because we can see what happens throughout the school year, with cohorts of kids. So we're starting that. In terms of state required tests, we have not received any information indicating that they'll be canceled or anything like that. So we are assuming that we'll move ahead with all state testing. We'll see what happens this winter and spring, but that's currently what we're assuming.
Thank you.
Do we have any updates on COVID-19 numbers or how things are going with all of that planning?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to include the update from the county. The numbers are higher than 10, and that's the number of cases per 1,000 residents or per 10,000 residents. And so that the recommendation then from the state is to have hybrid for secondary schools and in-person for elementary schools. That's been our plan since day one. We anticipated that hybrid would likely be needed at some point early in the school year, and unfortunately we were right. And so we don't have any changes in our current programming for grades E through 12 at this time.
Janie, go ahead.
Thanks, Pam. I just want to bring up to the full board. I did mention to Karsten, I don't know about others, but I am receiving lots of feedback from parents that just the online learning that isn't necessarily working the best for them and such. And so I just wanted to bring up that I think we should just regardless of numbers right now, we always have to make sure that's important, but just, what other benchmarks or what other possibilities we're going to be able to do in the future. For instance, like in the high school, especially, there's some classes that might only have 2 to 4 students in at a time just because of how the alphabet goes and what kind of class it is. And I just think that seems kind of inefficient and not best for our students that maybe could be coming in at a time. So I've just asked Carson, I don't mind kind of bringing it up to the full board too, just to make sure you're all aware of that too. Because I think we could still find some ways to give even better education to our kids and support our families while also being safe. So I just wanted to bring that up to everybody too for consideration.
Yeah, and just a quick response to that. I know at the last board meeting we talked about finding ways we could consider more in-person work, or at least a move towards in-person. I know that at the high school they relaxed some of the expectations at the high school. We're still within CDC guidelines and state guidelines, but at least relaxed some things. As our student reps mentioned earlier, there are some more activities that are being planned because we're confident with our social distancing guidelines and COVID response plans. So hopefully we're going to keep moving towards that. The adding more days for kids in grades 5 through 12 will definitely be considered, as we move on. It'd actually be easier for 5th and 6th grade. The biggest issue has to do with grades K through 4. And that's because we have to follow room capacity limits by the state. And so, if and when people from distance learning come back in person, it's a real struggle for us because we don't have openings in every school building currently. And so we're going to be soliciting information from parents to see if they're hoping to come back second semester. And then it's going to take quite a process to figure out who goes where. So we are considering those things, and we don't have any suggested changes right now, but at least it's on our radar.
Mr. Christensen.
Yeah, I think this kind of shows that opening up in the hybrid model was the conservative way to go. We knew that there would be changes throughout the year. I really don't understand people's rush to change things. We're just getting started in this model. There have been plenty of challenges all the way around. For the most part, we seem to be doing, we meaning the community, as well as the district, doing a pretty good job managing what it is that we're doing. As far as people who opted out for distance learning, I don't think there's a huge risk of them wanting to come back even if we went all in every day, although maybe some would. I don't see that. But I just really don't see the rush to finding when we can get back together again. I think all you have to do is look at what's happening in the White House and seeing how contacting people who are not well spreads rapidly and broadly. And we're doing our best for distancing here in the district, masks. I've talked to principals who say that the kids are doing a great job keeping their masks on, even the elementary kids. I mean, everybody is working hard to make this work, and it's a very difficult thing to make work. So I think we can really give ourselves a pat on the back, and our staff members, our teachers, our custodians, our paras, everybody is just knocking it out of the park, working to make this happen, working hard to make this happen. And to try to change something before a natural break in what we're doing, semester, is useless. It doesn't help anything. So let's get ourselves settled in now, and then once we find out that cases don't continue to go up, then we can do more about in-person learning or staying in the hybrid or going into all distance. But making a change right now is way premature, and I hope you take some advice on that.
Yeah, and by the way, Mike, I should have mentioned that we feel very confident in the current learning models we are for grades E through 12, and so we're transitioning into planning for other transitions. So, what exactly do we need to do now so that we easily transition into more distance learning? Or what do we do now in case we move towards in-person learning? So we're kind of looking at transition plans both ways. So I hope you didn't. I hope I didn't portray that we were going to go in person or anything like that. Right now, but we want our plans in place. Yeah, so we can move either way.
I mean, we have to look. We have to continue looking at all three. But to set a time certain when we switch will more likely be determined for us than by us.
All right, Jim is in the queue, and then Heidi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good topic of conversation. I've had a few people, staff members, reach out and talk about how it's going, and for some it's not going well with trying to do e-learning or distant learning and hybrid. They're struggling some. They're worried about their health. But neither one of us, when I talked to the last one, there was others, but the last one, we had no solutions, mainly because, we don't know what the COVID number is going to do next week. And nobody has that number. But this person had already talked to their building administrator. This building administrator was aware of that, is trying to do, look at this and that. But the thing is, it's just like when we had to make a decision between distant learning, hybrid, and all in. There's some on the staff level that want the kids to come back. There's some that want to do distant learning, and there's some that are probably just quietly getting by with what they do in the hybrid. So no matter what is decided or changed down the road, you're still going to have a group that are not ready to go that route. So taking caution, understanding their needs and their health, and trying to do what we can to help them out are what our building leaders are probably doing, and need to continue to do that and follow through or follow up with their staff, because unfortunately sometimes the silent majority is out there. You don't ever hear because they don't want to say anything. There are some that are very outspoken, which is great. Some that are not so quiet, you have to think about them too. So good topic. We have to be prepared. What are we? Not even 4 full weeks into it, I think. If I'm looking at the calendar right, that could be into our 4th or 5th week here. I didn't count the days, but good topic. As we will continue, I think it's a topic that the administrators are I would hope, are looking at it weekly to see how it's functioning and how it's working and what we can do. Because ultimately down the road, we want to get back to as much normalcy as possible. And that means in-school learning with our students when it's the time allows. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Heidi.
Yeah, so I at the end of our MSBA meetings, we all go around the room and share what's going on in our districts. It's pretty somber meetings lately. But just to give you some context, at the table we have Red Wing, Wayzata, Centennial, Dakota County, St. Paul Public Schools, North Branch, Pelican Rapids, Hibbing, Shakopee, Mahnomen, Crosby, Ironton, and Jordan, and Matabidi, and I think I'm missing, I think that's everybody for the most part. And I must say, we were all describing our models and kind of where we're at. Most of us are seeing those rise in cases, so we're not unique. And a lot of them are all hybrid, and just about all of them, if they're not, they could be doing elementary in person like we are. but they're all hybrid at the high school, including like junior high. So a lot of them are 7-12. So just looking at that, I mean, and some people are saying, well, we started in one model and 2 weeks later we had to change because they didn't prepare like we had to kind of stretch over our models over 2 scenarios. So I think we were smart that way. But there's another, the Dakota County guy is like, well, I think we're going to have to reassess where we're at. So I think with that context, I'm kind of in agreement with Mike, and it sounds like Jim too, that, you know, I believe in preparing, but I believe we're kind of where we need to be right now. And especially I keep thinking, you know, we're not static. We don't have walls around Goodhue County. We have rising numbers in Wisconsin. We know a number of people live there but work here. Same thing with Dakota County, Olmsted, Wabasha's counties numbers are worse than ours. So I think we're right where we need to be. I'm not in favor of kind of pushing that decision, and I believe what Mike said is probably true. We're not just making decisions on our own as an educational institute, but we're being driven by public health information. And the Minnesota Department of Health is in on that decision making too, as far as setting those parameters. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context about what I heard yesterday from districts all over the state. I think we're kind of right, like I say, kind of right in line with what they've experienced. And some of them are even less no in-person learning at all, or a hybrid at best. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
This has been a really important discussion. I think it's good to check in with each other and kind of feel out where we're at and how we're feeling. One of the things that I have gotten some feedback on, Superintendent Anderson, and I'm super glad that you've got a pulse on it. It sounds like we're thinking about better ways, more ways to support our staff, especially those staff who have a foot in both worlds, teaching online and teaching in person. I've heard from several staff members, teachers who are really stressed out about that. It's hard to be able to meet the needs of both groups of students at the same time. And they're feeling that. It's 4 weeks in now, and it's stressful, super stressful. So the more we can support those folks in their efforts, different resources that we can provide. Hopefully your administration is discussing that, more staff development, or I know a big piece of it is personnel, getting enough people in to be able to take some of that load and share it. But we hear you, teachers. We know that it's stressful. We feel for you. I can't imagine doing the work that you're doing right now. And I thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the tremendous amount of work that we know that you're doing. And hopefully we can do something as a group here to ease some of that burden and stress that I know that many of you are feeling. Any last words, Superintendent Anderson, before we move on in the agenda?
Yeah, I certainly completely agree with everything that you said, Pam. All of our employees are working hard. In terms of teachers who need to teach, you know, in person and distance at the same time, they're the ones who are really facing significant work and change in style. So we did receive some grant dollars to, you know, purchase the laptops for the high school teachers. We're also making some final arrangements with those building tech leads, moving Tony Kashi, you know, around with his assignment so he can help. And then also we have some really good staff development opportunities that we're kicking around. And once again, the Jones Family Foundation has really paid for, you know, with a $100,000 donation for many of those activities. The Wings Foundation has paid for so much technology at Jefferson School. I can't imagine what we'd be doing without both of those generous grants. So we're thankful to that. I know Mike Pagel sent out a survey today to find out more of the technology needs that our staff members are experiencing. Jess Whitcomb has been, you know, working with some PLCs as far as kind of the myths and the facts of virtual learning and what we can do so that we can treat our staff members well and provide a high quality education. So yeah, we're definitely aware of the work that our staff is doing, and we're doing whatever we can to support them.
Well said. Thank you. I'm going to move us on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they need to remove or act on alone?
Item 6, coaches.
Thank you. Any other items that we need to pull from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, then I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 6, fall coaches.
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda without number 6. And then I would like to just recognize our retirements and just thank all those people, because especially a couple of those have been in our district a long time and have gave much dedicated time to our students. So thank you very much to our retirees on that.
And Mike will second both comments.
All right, motion on the table made by Dean, seconded by Mike to approve the consent agenda minus number 6. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Fair,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. So that passes 6-0. All right, Mr. Derricks, number 6.
Yeah, thank you for pulling this. I didn't see a dollar number attached to this on what each of these coaches are being paid. I know they all are working, but really what alarmed me more than anything is when I looked at the football coaches, there's 11 different coaches for football. And it just looks to me like something's out of whack there, and I just can't vote in favor of this. Thank you.
You know, I can answer the compensation question. These particular salaries are included in the teacher agreement, so they're set by that agreement. In the future, we can certainly easily add the salary for each one. We have it on each contract. It'd be easy to add. In terms of the number of football coaches, I see that Paul Hartman is on the line. So if he can unmute himself, he can help explain why we have that number of coaches.
Thank you, Karsten. Thanks for the question, Arlen. I was planning to listen, but it's nice to be called out a little bit too. So it's our football coaches have remained consistent for a number of years, and really there are more coaches in football than any other athletic sport, simply for the sheer volume of safety surrounding teaching the game properly, the physical nature of the game, the different positions that are associated with the game. But the number of coaches that we have at the 7th, 8th on through 12th grade level have remained consistent over the last 3 or 4 years.
And Mr. Hartman, is it my understanding that the coaches, how is that compensation doled out among head coaches versus assistant coaches in any sport? How does that work?
Well, number one, good question. Number one, it's negotiated as part of the teachers union contract. It's also, we leave that up to, in large part, a discussion between the head coach and myself, how they want to allocate salaries based on the level that they are coaching, the position that they are coaching. Not to get into too personal decisions that I've had with head coaches, but just professional conversations amongst coaches, and then our head coaches speaking with our assistant coaches as well.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hartman, good evening.
Good evening.
Just curious on the yellow highlight on a Mr. Johnson, and my understanding of basketball, I thought was a winter sport. You have it down for the fall. I'm not quite following. And I know we had some, and I have a follow-up question probably from there.
Great question, Mr. Bryant. We approved all head coaches in August. We went through the interview process for a head coach and hired Peter pending board approval. Part of the reason, once again, that I proposed the head coaches being approved in August is that our head coaches really do, like all of our assistants as well, they consider themselves coaches year round. There's a lot of planning that goes into any season, especially considering the times here. And there's been planning amongst our fall coaches here tonight for a number of months, as well as Mr. Johnson in the planning stages for the winter season, which was approved by the State High School League on October 1st. So that was just an addendum because I do think it's important that we get these head coaches in place because it's really a year-round job.
Certainly. Okay. And how many people did you have apply for the head girls basketball position? Number-wise, I don't need to know who.
We had 3 people apply.
Okay. Thank you.
Paul, could you go down the football coach chart? It looks like there's, varsity coaches, and then there's other coaches at lower levels. Can you break that down for us?
I certainly can. I got to be honest, I'm on my phone here. I don't have the attachment in front of me. I don't have the list in front of me.
I can certainly go over a few of them, and then you can just respond if that's okay, Paul.
Sure. Yep.
First we have our, head coach, and then we have 4 assistant coaches, Richard Torres, Christian Flash, Zach Bowers, and Brent Stinson.
Okay, so Mr. Torres is our defensive staff, one of our defensive coordinators, along with Mr. Bowers, working both at the B squad level as well as varsity. Coach Flash is our offensive line coach, primarily with varsity, but also works with our 9th and 10th graders. And then Brent Stinson, newly hired teacher, outstanding teacher, along with a newly hired teacher there. And Mr. Bowers is going to be our offensive coordinator at the varsity level, but I know he's working with our 9th and 10th graders as well.
Okay.
And then we have 2 7th grade coaches, George Carter and Jim Bergerson.
Yep, both 7th grade coaches, yep.
Yep, and then 2 8th grade coaches, AJ Houston and Scott Perot.
Yep.
And then we have Greg Rowe and Paul Hughes listed as assistants, but there isn't a grade for them, grade level.
In full transparency, this is part of the sort of the shortcomings of the contract, because the contract for activities coaches has not been changed over a number of years. And so it's hard to slot them into a given position, because on the contract itself, it has a head 10th grade coach, an assistant 10th grade coach, a head junior varsity coach, an assistant varsity coach, so there's multiple coaches listed in the contract that we don't have and we don't pay. So in being fiscally responsible, we decided to keep the salaries at the same level we've had for the last 2 years. And so those coaches are being paid at what would be considered a middle school assistant salary. But to those gentlemen's credit, they're willing to take on the position at a relatively low rate of pay and trying to keep in balance here the salaries that we've kept for our football staff over the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so Paul, we have 3 teams, 3 football teams at the high school, varsity, freshman or 8th, and then is that correct? Three different teams.
Good question, Mike. We have a 7th grade team. We have an 8th grade team. Based on our numbers this year, we might have been able to field a 9th grade and a JV, but we felt the safe choice here, especially with COVID and some of our young players, that we would have a B squad. So in going from the top down, Mike, we would have a varsity, a B squad, an 8th grade, and a 7th grade.
Okay. Yeah, that's why there's so many of them, because we have a lot of teams.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and because you recognize a name on that list, Greg Rowe, I'm going to be abstaining from the vote.
I'll make the motion to approve the list of fall coaches. Mike.
Motion made by Mike. Do I get a second?
I'll second.
Heidi, I'll
Heidi
second.
Jones.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, this time I will start with Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Mr. Christensen.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
No.
Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
All right, so that passes 4-1 and 1 abstention.
Mr. Hartman, are you around the next couple of days? I give you a call.
Always.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Anderson, the resolution accepting donations and grants.
Yes, we received a donation of $4,000 from the Red Wing Public School Foundation to partially pay for the work of Wing Huey, who has been working with our 8th grade perspectives class. The Deaf Foundation is also donating some money to the cause, and those two donations together will fully pay or nearly fully pay for his work with our 8th graders. It's been a tremendously successful program. Very good feedback from students participating.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to accept that donation.
So moved by Mike.
Second by Jones.
Beat me.
Any other discussion? All right, we need a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Christensen.
I will approve.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that passes 6-0. Thank you. Future upcoming meetings. I see that. Thank you for attaching the board calendar. It's all listed there. Our next school board meeting is going to be held virtually on October 19th, right here. Let's see, what else do we have? The Legislative and Policy Committee will meet on nope, that's September. The 19th, the Legislative and Policy Committee will meet at 3:45 virtually. Then we have a school board meeting following that. Finance Committee will meet on the 26th at 4:45. And on the 26th, we're going to have our next school board workshop. If you all remember, a couple of months ago, we finished up a school board evaluation. And so there have been some recommendations coming out of that session. And as a board, we're going to look at that recommendation and we're going to set a goal or two that we can work on as a board moving forward in the next year. And then we had one other thing that we were going to talk about that night, Karsten. Do you remember?
I know at one point we were planning to talk about hiring practices.
That's right. That's right.
So we could do that unless we want our equity team to review it before it goes to the board.
I think hiring practices might be better to be its own thing. It seems much bigger than squeezing it into our own evaluation and or our equity thing. So I would kind of like to see it set out on its own.
I think that's a really great idea. That way we can give ample time to both of those topics. So we will make that plan.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
Right. I would also ask the board's consideration to review our email protocol in that workshop setting. We had one established, but I'm not sure if people are aware of it, or I'm not sure how many people are still following it. And I think it's causing some division. And also consider examining our own Code of Ethics policy number 209.
Yes, and we will include both of those as our board evaluation. I will send out to all of you the summary of what was sent to me from MSBA following our self-evaluation for your review. Please come to that meeting thinking about 1 or 2 goals that would really like to focus on as a board moving forward for the rest of the year. Any other future topics or upcoming meetings that we would like to highlight? Then the last item on our agenda is adjournment. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Here it is. Jim, I'll second then.
Jim, and made by Jim, seconded by Mike. Any other discussion?
Look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Yes, make sure you watch some football tonight.
Oh, you get football on Monday night? You are so lucky. 2 games. Good thing nobody's got COVID on either of those teams.
Mr. Derricks, we're voting to adjourn. Ms. Fair.
Hi.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Mr. Christensen.
Aye.
And this Packer fan votes aye. We are adjourned at 6-0 at 7:25. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.
Go Packers.
What? What? We're not using this space for that. Good night.